Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the Studio Q Show live. My name is Quinn Jacobson, and I'm going to be chatting with you guys for a little while today and hopefully getting some interaction going on here about varnishing, developing in the heat, and then we're going to look at some work from people coming in to the show today. So I know it's 15 minutes early, but I went ahead and started the show now. So we can wait for people to come in and go from there. I sent the links out. Everybody should have an invite now. And we should be good to go here in just a couple of minutes. So it's a beautiful day today in Denver. We have a very warm day, mid 30, 35, 36 degrees Celsius for the high today, in the mid 90s in the Fahrenheit range. And sunny and hot and dry. We're in the high desert, so it's a beautiful day, though. A gorgeous morning, and I'm looking forward to spending some time with you guys. And if you're across the world and it's evening or afternoon, wherever you might be, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be, we're going to do this and try to give you a little more information relevant to your journey in wet clothing photography. That's the point of these shows anyway, and to share some work and to share some ideas about making work, about technical issues, those kinds of things. So we're early, so we're just going to chill out for a minute and wait for people to arrive. The invites are sent. I better keep an eye on my email, though, just to be sure. Let's see here. We've got somebody wanting to get in already. Kind of neat. We have a lot of new folks coming in today. And so I hope we get some diversity here and some new faces, some new ideas maybe. And we'll see what happens with the variety, so to speak, of people coming in. We have one person starting to enter the show, so it's only been a couple of minutes. Patience is a virtue, as they say, so we're going to try to be patient. I thought this morning I'd start with the technical stuff, so we'll probably start with the varnishing and move into the developer and heat developing in the heat and issues like that. And then Jan, I did send the link out. Let me make sure that I'll send it out again. Send your circles. We're live. I'll say we're live. Boom, boom, boom. And I think I'm going to try to find one more person here to include in this email. Oh, okay, they're in my circles. That's fine. Yeah, the way the Google Hangouts or Google has this built is you have to be in the person's circle to be able to get into the live video feed. So you can just watch it, like some of you are right now. You can just watch it and not come in the video, and that's fine. The Q&A is open for you guys that aren't in the video or don't plan on coming in the video feed. The Q&A is open. You can post your questions there. I'll do my best to keep my eye on that. And there's also a YouTube chat that's available. Hey, Mark, good morning.
Good morning.
How's life?
Very good, thank you.
Good, you're the first one in, which is awesome. I'm the same. I'm the same way. I'm the early bird, getting the worm, so to speak, always.
Well, yeah, it's early for you, lunchtime for me. So
yeah, true story. Yeah, it's not that early for me. I've been up a while. I get up early, so my day's definitely already started. I have to do a little prep for this stuff, and I have other obligations, of course. But so hopefully today I just kind of given maybe talking to myself there a little bit. Although there are some viewers already in the room, but basically I'm just going to start out with some technical stuff and do some things on varnishing, how I varnish, some typical problems that people run into when they're varnishing, and some ideas to correct those. And then talk a little bit about developing in the heat, which is always the case. Like today in Denver, it's in the mid-90s, high and dry, in the mid-30s, 35, 36 degrees Celsius. So it's warm and dry here, and that's always going to present a problem when you're out in the field with developers. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then hopefully I have some folks coming in that want to show and talk about some photography, some run into when they're varnishing, and some ideas to correct those. And then talk a little bit about developing.
Good morning, Ron.
Always the case, like today in Denver, it's in
I can hear myself. I'm going to have to mute you.
In the mid-30s, 35, 36 degrees Celsius. So it's there we go. I seem to be constantly talking, so I only like to hear myself one time, not twice. So that feedback in the YouTube chat will come back around. Usually when I open these shows up, I forget to kill that thing, and I hear myself talking back to myself when I start the show. But it's all good. Good morning, Jan.
Good morning. Good morning.
How are things in Europe?
Yeah, all is okay. I have today tried to after quite a long time to redevelop wet plate colloidal negative. I can show then my results from today if we have time to discuss also this issue. After a few months, I am prepared to really produce real negatives. Yeah, it's a really long way to make real negative. You know what I'm speaking about, because it's quite hard.
Yeah,
it's quite hard.
Yeah, and you've heard me talk about this in the past. How do we define what Jan just said? How do we define a real wet collodion negative from something that just somebody's calling a negative, right? I mean, it's easy to hold up an image and look at it and say, oh, that's, if it's on clear glass or plexiglass or something clear, you can say, oh, that's a negative. That's a wet collodion negative, and that could be. It could be, but the real test is to take that negative, quote unquote, and put it on a piece of salt paper, put it on a piece of albumin paper, put it on a piece of collodion chloride paper, and print it out. And if it prints out well and it prints out nice and you've got a lot of tonal range and detail, you have a wet collodion negative. If it's flat and muddy and doesn't print, you have an ambrotype that you call the negative, but really is just an ambrotype. And that's confusing for people. It's a very confusing thing, you know, especially if you've worked in the film world, especially if you've worked with film, which most of us have at some point in the past, and some of us have worked with film for decades. So when you hold a negative up, or you have a negative on your light table or something, we all know what negatives are. And so when you hold a piece of clear glass up with a collodion image on it, it's difficult not to call that a negative if it looks like a negative. But the idea here is the density and the contrast to be able to print on those 19th century process printing out papers. And that's the real test. So it's a little bit frustrating to me when I go online or somebody sends me an email and says, look at this wet collodion negative that I made. And what they've done is they've made an ambrotype and inversed it and called it a negative. I got to send another quick email out here. Yes, I don't know why people are. There's a bunch of people that are giving me a little bit of grief trying to get in for some reason, and I'm not sure why. But we'll hit them up. We'll keep hitting them with an invite. Boom, invite. Okay. So yeah, the difference between an ambrotype and a negative is the printing out. Being able to print out on salt or albumin, or there's some of the what's called alternative printing processes that even an ambrotype might print on, but an ambrotype will not print on albumin or saltpeter or chlorine chloride. You need that density. You need that redevelopment, that hard density, and going from there. There's Dale got in. Good morning, Dale. Welcome.
Hey, that was a process today.
Not really. I sent out to all my circles and everyone in my circles, and it seems like maybe it was a quiet invite, and I unchecked that quiet button, and all of a sudden it seems like people could get in. So I don't know what Google's got going on with their system, but I can't.
I thought you might have been mad because we burnt your White House a few years back. You
burnt my what?
White House.
White House.
Yeah. Okay. Never mind. Go back to the 1812 history here.
Oh. Yeah. Yeah. I sent out to all my circles. Oh, good morning. Good morning, Terry. It was a quiet invite, and I'm sorry? All right. Okay. Here we go. So we're gonna go ahead. Well, it's still a little bit. I started this 15 minutes early trying to get people in. So.
Okay, never mind. Go back to the 1812 history here.
Good morning, Barbara. You got in. Who's giving feedback? Is that me? No. Okay. I hear myself talking. So most of you have been in here. Well, all of you have been in here before. So the mute button, when you come in, mute, or what will happen is the YouTube feed that you come into will be about a 6 or 8 second delay, and it'll spin back the voices, whoever was talking.
Go back to the 1812 history here.
Good morning, everyone. You got in. Who's giving feedback? Is that me? Who's hearing that feedback? Am I the only one hearing the feedback? Okay. All right. It should have stopped now. Hopefully we're good. Good deal. So this morning I thought, or this afternoon or evening, wherever you might be, I thought we'd start out with some of the technical stuff and talk a little bit about some problems. It seems varnishing is always a problem for people in this process. And I don't know, it was last year or so, somebody came up and started talking about these alternative varnishes, and they're not really alternative. I talked about this before, about using shellac or using a modern acrylic or those kinds of things. And I've done a lot of videos in the past on varnishing, but I thought for the sake of people coming in this morning just to see, I get enough email on this that I could probably do this every month. Just to be able to see, I'm going to varnish a plate in front of you with my methodology again and show you my results and see if anything gels or if anything makes sense for you that way. And I know there's a lot of people that are watching that aren't in the live feed, and they just want to come in and get the information, and we're dropping knowledge, we're sharing photographs, and we're exchanging ideas. And some people aren't comfortable in participating that way, and they just want the knowledge. They just want to watch the video. So there'll be, for you guys in the live video feed, you know, you've already seen this, I'm sure, and you've probably already done it many, many times. But I'm going to go over it one more time. I'm going to talk about how I make my varnish. I'm going to talk about things on the plate that will be a problem varnishing, and talk about how to clean these plates before you varnish, and also talk about some of the methodology. Sorry, I know I wasn't trying to kiss you. I was reaching for my varnish. And talk about some of the methodology of how do you get really good clean varnish. Why do you use test tubes? How hot do you heat it up? What's the methodology of holding the plate? We're going to go over all of that. And sorry again. And show you, or at least me show you my technique, my methodology. As they say, your mileage may vary, but the basis of this is going to be pretty solid. I'm going to try to keep this steady, but here's how I mix my varnish up. This is what I mix my varnish in. You can see all the stuff on the bottom I don't want to disturb. That's bark and little pieces of tree and stuff in there. And I also have another piece of equipment that I use that some of you might recognize. This is a pipette. Anybody ever use one of these? This is a good tool to decant the clean, clear varnish off of the top and leave all the crap at the bottom, and just take 25 mils at a time and put it in my test tube and work from there. And then, of course, I have my, my pour bottle and my drain bottle, just like collodion. So I'll decant off into this bottle or test tubes. If I'm in the studio here, I just go into the test tubes. And this is the drain bottle, which I drain all of the stuff off the plate into the bottle, and then I filter this and take care of it and reuse it, of course. You don't want to throw your varnish away. So let's talk about varnish for a second. I guess I already have for a minute, but why do you varnish? I think the most important part of varnishing is, contrary to popular belief, it's not the smell of lavender, although that is nice. The real important part of varnishing is to protect the image. So I've been doing some photographs of the local flora here, okay? So when we varnish an image, all of this stuff on the image that you can see in the highlights, midtones, down to the shadow, anything you can see visible on the image is silver, right? So when we pour developer on the plate in the development process, we have that silver iodide and silver bromide reduced, just like in cooking, reduced down to the pure metallic state of silver. So all your highlights, all your midtones, all your tonal range down to the black, anything you see visible on the image, you can see highlights down to the last final visible midtone, if you will, is silver. Is like your jewelry. If you wear jewelry, is silver jewelry. Silver coins. It's pure metallic silver. And what happens when you leave your good silverware out? And especially if you live close to a city or an industrial place. In 1, 2, 3 months, maybe sooner, it tarnishes. It turns black. That's because of the sulfides in the air. So the sulfides hit this unvarnished plate the highlights in it, and they turn into silver sulfide. And what color is silver sulfide? It's black. So your images turn black. So if you don't varnish, your images, depending on where you live, there's a lot of factors, depending on how you store it, depending on, what kind of exposure basically it has to the sulfides in the air, where you're at, how much pollution's in the air, and how you store it. In China, I was just thinking, I paused there for a second. In China, it was unbelievable. I had a silver bath, and when I just used it for a few plates. And just to give you an idea, when I filtered the silver bath, clean silver was black almost instantly through the filtration process. There's so much pollution. I had a very, very difficult time breathing in Shanghai. Hangzhou, the other city just kind of southwest of Shanghai on the East China Sea, southern China there, wasn't so bad. But Shanghai, I couldn't hardly breathe. And so if you were in China making plates, I would recommend that you varnish that day. I mean, it's that extreme, or cover them up with glass or something. So it's really important to varnish your plates for preservation, archivability, and handling. I know we don't pass these objects around much, but we do have negatives, right? We do have negatives that we handle, that we have to put on paper, that we're constantly moving around, taking out of the sleeves. So not only is it important to varnish your ambrotypes for archivability, but your negatives must be varnished. I mean, just handling them alone, I don't know if you've ever handled wet collodion photographs that are unvarnished, but boy, it doesn't take much to get a little surface scratch or a little smudge or anything, you know, the oils on your hands, all that stuff. So varnishing is really important for the preservation of the image, and if you're making negatives and handling them, it's an absolute must. So the question was, what is it that makes gum sandarac so useful or so effective in this process or this procedure? And I would answer that it's not just gum sandarac, but there's a couple of, the only thing that really didn't work well in the 19th century was Damar, this kind of, there's all kinds of products that they tried that didn't really work well, but shellac, gum sandarac, and there was a couple others, but shellac and gum sandarac seem to be like the top ones. Now, last year, whenever this thing came about, where people were saying, "Oh, I hate gum sandarac. I pour it on my image and it darkens it," and my position's always been this: it's not the gum sandarac; it's your exposure. If you make an ambrotype or a tintype and it dries, and when it's wet, that's what color your final image is going to be. So you should always judge your image, your final varnished image, based on the color of the wet image. And so when it dries about a stop to sometimes almost 2 stops brighter than when it's varnished. So the theory was, well, let's come out with let's make a shellac based varnish, spin it, filter it, spin all the color out of it with carbon, and then when you pour it on, it will act more like a modern acrylic. It won't have any color to it. I personally think that it's not very attractive to me, and I'm gonna show you another image here that's actually quite actually quite boring. We're gonna compare the two when we varnish them. It's quite bright and silvery. This one's got more of a warm tone to it, and this other. Let me grab the other one real quick. This is more of like a film image. It's just, I don't know, it's some test shot for something, testing chemistry or something. So you can kind of see already the color difference in them a little bit. This is a little warmer than this. This is a little brighter. So we're going to varnish both of them and then look at them after they're varnished with gum sandarac. Gum sandarac is basically tree sap from a large leaf conifer tree in North Africa and Spain, and it was used, you know, it's used in all different kinds of things, but they go around and collect it off the tree, the bark off the tree turns into this sap, and we put the sap in with alcohol, melt the sap down, and that's what this is. Melt the sap down, and it turns into this, leaves all that sediment and crap at the bottom. This is how I do mine anyway. And then I just let it sit and stabilize, and then I decant it out of there into my bottles or my test tubes, like I said. But it's a tree sap, and it's very inert to the collodion, or in this case, the silver and the collodion rider, if you will, or the collodion layer. So it works very well to protect the image against handling, to protect the image against, I've even run them underwater, I put them in windows and let them get exposed to the sun. It's very, very, very stable, and it works very well, at least the way I use it. And that's the only thing I can say and show you is the way I use it. What does the alcohol do? The alcohol is just the carrier to break down the sap or the gum sandarac. And so we just kind of dissolve it. It's kind of like the water in developer, or you know, the ether and alcohol in collodion. The alcohol acts the same thing here. It's just the carrier and dissolves the sap. And then you have one final ingredient, the lavender oil. And the lavender oil acts as a plasticizer. The plasticizer keeps the gum sandarac flexible so you don't get the spider cracks over the years and those kinds of things. So you've seen those old paintings where they varnish them, and you know, I've been in Europe and gone to those museums and saw those old Renaissance and, you know, from, you know, 15th century on up, and some of those have all those tiny little black spider cracks when you get close to them. It's basically the varnish, and that's what the plasticizer, the lavender oil, does, is it keeps it flexible, and we call it a plasticizer. So, and you know, it is kind of ironic. I joked earlier about it a little bit, but lavender oil contains the terpene linalool, and terpenes are what give terpenoids and flavonoids are what gives food and fruits and things that smell and flavor. Lavender oil comes from the essential oil of the lavender flower, right? So you grow lavender, it buds, it flowers, and you take those flowers and you take that the essential oils out, and you have lavender oil. And lavender oil is full of linalool. And linalool is a terpene that's scientifically proven to reduce stress through aromatherapy. So it is kind of neat that you work through this process, and depending on your working style, some work harder than others, but regardless, it's a very difficult journey. It's very labor intensive. And if you make any significant amount of plates in a day, at the end of the day you sit down to varnish. It's kind of interesting to know that you're there, you're working, you're tired, you're sweating, you're whatever, and you're sitting there and you're heating up lavender oil and gum sandarac varnish in your plates, and it fills the room or space up, and you smell that linalool, and you take that linalool in, and it just kind of calms you down at the end of the day. It's kind of interesting that way. So facts, they're true. I don't know exactly how linalool affects everyone, but I know it's a positive thing for me. So that's the overview of what is in gum sandarac. And I wanted to talk to you about a couple of cleaning the plate, clean, filtered varnish, and drain and test tubes. I want to talk to you about the mechanics of how to do this. And like I said, I'm going to move my computer back here just a little bit and show you this, if I can. There we go. So I'm not going to really do this because I've disturbed this now, but can you guys, yeah, you can see it there. So what I do,
Quinn,
is I have test tubes, and these ones are being cleaned, so ignore those for a minute. I have test tubes, the gum sandarac varnish, I'm sorry, what was asked there? I missed the question. I'll go to the Q&A here. Oh. Quinn, do you have to smoke that oil to feel relaxed? You can, I guess. If you want to smoke linalool, I guess you could. Not out of the question. So what I do is I take my pipette and I go down into my varnish like that. And normally I'd fill it up all the way, but I'm just showing you what I do. And normally I have gloves on too. Then I put it into the test tube or into my my varnish bottle here, which is my pour bottle. And I use this in the field, and I use test tubes normally in the studio here. So, and it's really quite simple. Once it's cleaned out, test tube it off. You can make a little decanting tool too if you want, if that's easier for you. But the idea is to then take this and filter this down just to make sure a couple of times. But if you're very careful and you're very steady, you can make 800 mils. I make usually 800 to 1,000 mils of varnish at a time, and then I let it settle for a week or 2 or 10 days, and then I decant that off, and I filter that, and then it can go into the test tube. So this is the varnish we're going to use today. It's perfectly clean, and it's really simple to do. I use coffee filters, unbleached coffee filters, to varnish, and it's pretty simple and straightforward that way.
Quinn, how long would you dare leave that pipette set before you cleaned it out, or would have to clean it out?
I never clean it out.
Oh.
Yeah, I never clean it out. Whoop! I just put it up, face this way, let it drain. Actually put it in this rack sometimes, and just let it drain. It never has to be cleaned out. I did run alcohol through it a couple of times in the past, but typically it's not a problem at all.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I've got to clean up a little bit of a spill here. I got a little bit of alcohol in this test tube. Alcohol's your friend. That's the most expensive compound in this process, as we all know, alcohol. If I screw up, forgive me, but I have a little bit of varnish on my computer now. Probably switched the whole show off. But, okay, so we've got our varnish out, cleaned, taken care of that way. So let's go ahead and, I got to clean my mouse pad off here, my little track thing on my Mac. I don't want my fingers all sticky. There we go. So, let's take and talk about doing the actual varnishing. Let me grab one more piece of equipment here. What's the biggest problem you guys have with varnishing? Those that do varnish, what's the biggest problem you have? Anybody? Nobody? Unmute
bubbles.
Give me what's that? Sorry.
Air bubbles here.
Air bubbles? Like in the varnish?
Yeah.
Is that from like, how do you get air bubbles? Like pouring too far up, or how do you do that?
Wrong. Poorly.
Oh, okay. Well,
I think, Quinn, to be honest with you, I think it's me. I'm pouring it up too high, or too high from the plate, and it's hitting the plate with too much velocity, if you will.
I got you. Sorry, I just saw some varnish on my screen too. I really squirt that up. Yeah. So if you don't want to. You don't, just like anything in this process, you don't want to go. You don't want to have. Developers, what I'm thinking of. When you hold a plate and you're developing a plate and you go way high and you hit that plate, try it sometime. Guaranteed developer burn. Anything high and fast with a lot of velocity and a lot of power, you'll get a developer burn. So you want to apply everything to the plate in the smoothest, cleanest, best method. And varnish is no exception. And so while I don't pour it out like developer, I do pour it in the center and work it around. I do it very methodically, and you'll see that here in just a second. When I talk about cleaning a plate or clean plate, you're like, what do you mean clean a plate? You just took that out of the wash and you dried it? What do you mean clean a plate? Let me address that for a second. Let me grab my alcohol lamp here. What happens? So you've just processed this plate, and you've come out of the darkroom. You have this plate, and you've dried it. Now, really, what's happening here is, if your chemistry is not absolutely spot on, if it's not like perfect, and the conditions that you develop this in aren't perfect, you've got some heat, you don't have enough restrainer in your developer, there's all kinds of things. Things that people will not even see this happens with. So here's my suggestion. No one's perfect. No one's ever going to have perfect chemistry in that context. So what you have to recognize is when this plate comes out of the wash, and unless you're washing in distilled water and you're cleaning your plates while they're wet really well, what you always have is you're always going to have some content of 3 silver that's developed on the plate, even if it's caught on the edges. You're going to have the oyster stains, any of that organic material that when you pour a warm developer on can break loose from the edge. You're going to get all kinds of spots and fish eyes and really weird crap on your plate. I mean, it's going to look horrible. Most of the plates that I've seen varnished look like somebody took a toothpick or something and hit little spots all over it, and there's little pieces of stuff everywhere. People say, I can't get my varnish clean enough. That's not necessarily from your varnish. In fact, a lot of times it's going to be from your plate itself that you didn't clean off. So I recommend that you clean all the edges off. You can use a paper towel, you can use your t-shirt, whatever. And if you have any free silver on the surface of the plate, you're going to have to clean that off too. And if you don't do it while it's wet, the only substrate that I know that you can re-wet is this aluminum without having the image peel off of it. So, having said that, your plate's clean, your edges are clean, you don't have any free silver, what we call, you know, veiling or scumming, or you don't have big chunks of oyster spots and organic material embedded that will break free. You're good to heat your plate up and start the varnishing process. And this is how I do it. I have really simple. I have a little spirit lamp here. I also have a catalytic heater that's flameless that I can do big plates with. Because when you have alcohol on a like, you know, a 16 by 20 or 40 by 50 centimeter plate, and you drain a little bit of that alcohol off and it catches on fire, you're going to have a huge fire. Unlike this. If you catch this on fire, it's, you know, a good blow and you blow it out. You don't want to spit on it. But so open flames for anything, you know, I say anything 11 by 14 and smaller, or 8 by 10 and smaller. An open flame for me is fine. Some people don't like to use open flames at all, and that's understandable. I don't have a problem with that. But I love the spirit lamp. I've used it for many years, and I think it works great. So let's do this here. So there's my flame. I think you can see this. And what I'm going to do, aluminum heats up very fast. I mean, it just like, but it also dissipates heat fast too, right? So the idea here is to heat the plate up to, I'm going to say 42 to 45 Celsius, maybe 105 to 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Good and hot, really hot, almost to where you can't even hold it with rubber gloves. And you want to get the entire plate hot. You don't want to have any cold or lukewarm, or, you know, you want it even. Is what I'm saying actually. So we get it nice and hot, and I'll split the time up between that and my actual varnish, my gum sand rack. I'm going to heat up in the test tube. And if you use test tubes, make sure you use the ones that are rated to take heat well, you know, lab-grade test tubes. You don't want cheap ones blowing up on you. I mean, that spirit lamp right there, that pointed heat is hot. And so you have to keep things moving. You don't want to hold things in one place too long. That feels good. You want that about body temperature, a little warmer. I'm going to do one more kind of pass on here just to warm it up. And I'm also going to decide which corner is going to be my drain corner. And I decided this corner is going to be my drain corner because I want to control the drip line a little more than normal. So nice and warm. I set my heat away from here. This is my drip corner, so I lay it lengthwise to my body. Just a little touch of heat one more time on that just to bring it back for a second. And typically I can measure exactly what size of plate I'm doing in the test tube, and that saves me on varnish as well. Nice and level, here we go. A nice puddle in the center. It's not as viscous as collodion, but nice puddle in the center. And unlike collodion, I can work this around. I can roll it back on itself. I can do all kinds of stuff. And with that, having said that, I'm going to multitask here and grab my drain bottle and uncap that. And I'm almost there. I'm almost there. Let those little spots fill in here, because I was very conservative on how much I put on here. And here we go. And I drain it. I don't move it though. I don't shake it. I don't rock it. I just drain it. You can see it draining there. I'm going to drain it, or it's starting to get a little ridge there, so I'm going to, once it starts dripping, I'm going to set it down on a clean surface, and I'm going to kind of tease that excess varnish off like that. Then I'm going to bring my flame back over, and holding it like tilted like this, tilted this way, I'm going to get it up over the flame as soon as I can. Not too close, because why? It's pure alcohol on here. And as this continues to drain because I have it tilted, I just wick that off. And the idea, what's the idea behind the heat? Well, alcohol has 5% water. Have you ever seen water and gum sander act out together? It goes to a completely matte finish. So you're trying to evaporate the water as quickly as possible. And I think we've done that here. So now the alcohol is pretty stable. I don't have to worry about it much. I'm going to get it real hot. I can smell the lavender now. I click on Smell-O-Vision, but I don't have that. We don't have that technology yet. I don't know if you can see that or not. That's the problem. Let me get a little more heat on it. I don't even really have a drip line. And why is that? It's because it's summertime. It's 26 degrees in my studio today. And so in the wintertime, you're going to have bigger drip lines because the gum sander act's going to get cold fast. Here, we have a little more time. I'm going to cap my flame here if I can find my top. Guess I can't. So, having said that, you want shiny, glossy, clean, and I'm never going to get an image of this, am I? Smells wonderful. There's no matte finish at all. That means that I got the water out of the alcohol fast enough. It's a shiny, beautiful, clean surface. There's no defects on it. The color didn't really change at all. I'm having reflection problems now with it, though. The color didn't change really at all. It just came back to a nice, rich image like it was when I started. Or when it was wet. So it was a little bright to begin with, actually. So that's the first one. I'm just going to put that on the rack here. Now let's do this one. Same thing, but with a little different twist on it. Now, typically, if this just came out of the wash, I could put it on my shirt, clean off the edges, take a piece of paper towel, whatever. I think this has been cleaned already. And off we go again. Heat it up. This half plate will be quite quick to do and easy to do here. So I don't know why people dislike gum sander act so much. I actually prefer it. I've used it on all my work. I used shellac years ago, but I just found that I like gum sander act better. It works with my methodology and how I make photographs, so I have no problem with it at all. And if people do, that's fine. You can try other things and experiment, but I find that I like to stick with what works for me and go from there. So the drip edge here is going to be this corner down here. Nice little puddle in the center. This will go quite fast. Actually, I'm going to drain this right back into the test tube. Work it around. And again, you don't want to drip anything. You want to try to be conservative with your chemistry and make it work. I like to let it soak in the plate as much as possible. Drip, drip, drip. Take it off of there. Wick that off. Pull my flame back and get it up over the flame and have it tilted like this. Why have it tilted? So that excess varnish can run down there and I can wick that off. And it just pulled a little more off of there. That will prevent those great big drip lines. And if you turn the plate back on itself, you're going to have a great big ridge at the bottom of the plate. If you don't mind that, no biggie. But a lot of people don't like that. I just touched my finger on the top corner of the plate, but that's okay. It's just for demonstration purposes. You see the alcohol's gone from it now? I'm really heating it up. I can smell that lavender oil strong. And there you go. Didn't change color really. It just made what was there a little richer and a little more pronounced, if you will, maybe. But
Quinn,
not a problem. Varnishing is simple. Go ahead.
Quinn, how long would you wait now before you worked with that plate to frame it or present it or whatever?
Yeah, that's a
Let it set, I guess, is the word I'm looking for.
That's a really good question. There's two processes here. There's drying. So within 20 or 30 minutes, that plate's going to feel dry, right? It's going to appear and physically feel like it's dry. Then there's curing. So my philosophy is that it dries within an hour. It'll be dry within 20 minutes here this morning, but it won't be cured. So 3 to 7 days, depending on where you store it, the humidity and the temperature. If it's normal, if it's 20 degrees Celsius, 68, 70 degrees Fahrenheit, and 40, 50% humidity, 3 to 4 days, that'll be cured. If it's cooler, if it's 10, 12 degrees Celsius, maybe 55, 60 degrees, and the humidity is quite high, 70, 80%, whatever case that might be, you might need a week to cure it. So it depends on how it's stored and the relative humidity and temperature. Then you can handle them. And that's a real important question you asked there, Dale, because it's not so much framing ambrotypes or handling ambrotypes. It would be more negatives, because you're going to handle those all the time. And moreover, you're going to lay a negative emulsion side to emulsion side on sensitized photographic paper, so you've really got to make sure that's cured. That's why, unfortunately, in my advanced course in negative making, it's 3 days, but we can't varnish our negatives we make in the course because we don't have time for them to cure and then put them on paper. So it's one of those things where you've got to be cognizant of it. So I often tell people, you think ambrotypes or tintypes are labor intensive and take a long time. Wait till you make negatives, because typically I say I can't make a negative. It takes me a week to make a print because I make the negative, and then it has to dry and cure before I can make the print. So I always kind of tease and say it takes me a week to make one photograph. But it's kind of true, though, right? I mean, there's some truth in that. Did I miss somebody's question here? I saw something pop up.
I suspect you're saying it takes a week is more a marketing ploy so you increase your ROI. I'm joking.
It's a good business strategy, but in this case, it happens to be true. Dale's saying I get more money if I tell him it takes me longer, but it's true. It'd be a good ploy if it wasn't. Who asked me a question? Was it you, Eric? Unmute yourself and give us a whirl there, buddy.
Queen, Yanni speaking. Can you hear me?
Okay, Jan.
I have wrote down a question in group chat. Please, can you look at there?
In group chat, okay. Left group chat, join group chat. I don't see your question in group chat.
Okay, so I will ask you.
Okay.
I don't understand how you get rid of the silver fragments and other stuff before varnishing. This is my not big issue, but since my start with wet plate collodion, and I look at my old plates now, 3 years and 3.5 years old, it looks really horrible. And now I can see that the problem, as you have described, is the proper preparation of the plate before you put the varnish on it.
Yes, this is one of those things no one ever talks about, but is so incredibly important to do.
My problem was at the beginning that I only cleaned the plate immediately before varnish, before varnishing, when the plate was already dry after, let's say, weeks, and you know that if you try to clean it with brush, you can easily destroy the surface. Yeah, it was a problem very often, and I would like to to do it better in the future. So I am curious how to do it. Maybe immediately after you have the fresh plate still wet, if it is possible or not. Of course, I have experiences that you can partially remove so-called fog if you have on the surface.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really sensitive work. And please, if you have some suggestions.
Yeah, great question, Jan. And let me address that from the most idealistic answer to the most realistic or practical answer. I'm going to take my gloves off. My hands are sweating. Here's the thing. Jan is basically asking and or commenting about the problem that I just described, which is everyone's problem. It's not just Jan's. It's everyone's problem. And the question is when is the best time to clean this surface scum or this organic material or this problem with chemistry or the problem with the environment, heat? And we're going to actually talk about developing in the heat, which is actually, it's kind of interesting that these two topics directly relate with each other. Developing in heat will actually cause your this surface scum and this veiling to, and we'll get into that. But so you have two things happening here. You have to understand chemistry really well to actually prevent the problem from taking place in the beginning. You have your chemistry. That's why I stress chemistry so much, is because if your chemistry is off, everything else down the road from that point on is going to have a problem. Not just varnishing, everything. Okay? So if your chemistry is off, one problem that we're specifically addressing here is veiling and scumming. And that's when you have you've just taken a plate out of an entire silver bath. The whole plate is covered with free silver. The only areas that you're interested in is developing is where that light energy has struck the plate and made a latent image or burned in those halides, right? The silver iodide halides and the silver bromide halides, the halogens. And so the only place you want to reduce that silver is where those highlights and midtones down to the black or clear are. So in a perfect world, i.e. Kodak chemistry and Kodak film that they perfected over 50 or 60 or 70 years, 80, 90 years maybe, they've got that down. So they know the temperature, the procedure, everything, all the chemistries built in basically on the film, and you add the chemistry and develop. You're shaking every minute, whatever you're rotating, whatever process you're doing. They've got that down to a science. We don't have that in wet collodion. So if your chemistry's off a little bit, you're going to expose and develop, or you're going to not expose, but develop some of that free silver when you develop your plate. You might not even see it. It won't be one of those where, oh my God, and you take a cotton ball and you reveal that image underneath all that veiling and scumming, right? Everybody's seen it. Anybody who's worked in collodion has seen this. Where you take a wet cotton ball and you drag it over your image you just developed and fixed. It's really faint and light as you look at the plate, and then you put a cotton ball on it and drag it over. You remove all of that free silver or unexposed silver that was developed. And that could be from what? That could be from not enough restrainer, too much heat, too long a development. You're trying to push development because you didn't get the exposure right or whatever. It could be a myriad of problems. But what I'm saying is your chemistry can be off just a tiny bit, and you're still going to have stuff that you won't even see on that plate that's going to show up in this step of varnishing. It just is. I've seen it. I've lived it. I've done it. I know it. So what we're talking about is drilling down and saying, number one goal, get your chemistry as correct as possible. Number two goal, make sure your exposure is correct as possible so you're not underdeveloping or overdeveloping, because both of those create problems. And especially overdeveloping, you're going to develop that unexposed silver, and you're going to have all kinds of organic material on that plate. You go to varnish it, it's going to be a mess, literally a mess. Number three, environment. your environment, or number one, chemistry, number two, environment. Number two, environment. Are you working in a nice, clean studio that you don't have a bunch of cat hair or dog hair blowing around and fans blowing at you or stuff blowing in the window? I mean, you've got to have a really clean environment to do this in, or you're just going to have shite on your plate. You're going to have specks and dust and crap all over your plate. So chemistry, environment, and then finally technique. How do you clean the plate? How do you mitigate some of these problems? For me, Jan, I try to do it in the dark room or the dark box if I'm out in the field. And that means while the plate is still wet, if I see any indication of unexposed silver being developed for whatever reason, heat, development time, whatever those, like I just mentioned, I will immediately take wet cotton balls and go over the image in the field in distilled water and then store it in a box or store it in glycerin and water. Or if I'm in the studio here, I just go under the faucet and clean that plate off. The studio's easy. Field, not so easy. Then afterward, once that plate's dried and I'm ready to varnish, I'll take a paper towel. I'll take a piece of paper towel. I'll fold it up, or cotton, or towel's actually better, and I'll go over the edges of the plate. I'll go over the edge of the plate like this. I'll actually, well, I can't do it here because it's kind of wet, but I'll clean the edge of the plate off. Because that varnish will go to the edge of the plate and grab that little stuff on the edges and pull it right back into the center of the frame. Every time, I guarantee it. So, really, the problem isn't what kind of varnish you're using. The problem is your chemistry, your environment, and your technique. Those are the problems with varnishing. It's not, hey, give me a different varnish. Hey, you know, I can only speak really for Americans, but Americans are constantly looking, maybe it's a human thing, we're constantly looking for the path of least resistance. We're constantly looking for the easiest answer. And a lot of times it's not. A lot of times it's very complex, and there's a lot of factors that go into figuring out what's wrong. And those three are definitely the top in varnishing. And I'd be happy to debate this with anyone in the industry, because I've done this enough. I know what varnishing, what poor varnishing is and what good varnishing is. And those three things, if you work on those things, your varnishing technique is going to improve tremendously, no matter what varnish you use. I don't care if it's modern acrylic is much more forgiving, I have to admit. It doesn't have it doesn't seem to have those solvent properties like the alcohol-based varnish, right? So alcohol is a solvent, and you put it on, it breaks things down, right? So if you have a clump of organic material up in the corner of your plate and you didn't clean that off, and that hot, warm varnish hits that with a bunch of alcohol in it, it'll dissolve that stuff and flow back onto your image. So modern varnish or acrylic varnishes tend to not have that solvent-based feature, and they're very forgiving. So if you don't want to use gum sandurac, and you aren't really concerned with archivability, because we don't know with the modern acrylic varnishes if they're going to last or not. If you don't have those concerns, use modern acrylic varnish. You know, a Liquitex. I've done demos on these before. They work great. They have a self-leveling compound in them. You can run into big problems with them though if you don't have if you don't level them out right, or if you leave them turned a little bit, you'll have a big buildup on one corner. In fact, I can show. Can I show you one maybe? No, it doesn't matter. So the modern varnishes are really good if you want to mitigate this whole issue of varnishing. Switching to other varnishes, and if your technique and your environment and chemistry is off, doesn't really matter. You're going to have the same exact problems. People are having the same exact problems with what you call it, shellac varnishes. They are gum sandurac varnish. It doesn't matter. I don't know. I don't want to indict anyone here, but it's kind of a ploy to say switch varnishes because you can't varnish your plate. You're not substituting anything there. It's not helping you. I hope that answered the question.
Honestly, I have no experience with the modern varnish as you have mentioned. Please, could you just say a few words about modern varnish, what types you can use, where to buy it, simply because I have really no clue.
Sure. Let me grab a couple of things, and I'll actually include this. I'll include it in this little varnish demo. Hold on, I'll get some.
Thank you.
I actually found an image that I do have that build up on. Here's a modern varnish image with, look down in the corner if I can get it reflected. See that build up? It was off level. It was off level when they poured this, but it's really good. I don't know the archivability of it though. That's the problem. So here's where did I get this? Let me put my old man glasses on. Hyatt's. I don't know how much it was. This is Liquitex gloss varnish. It's a modern acrylic varnish, and it works really, really well. I would actually use this exclusively if the manufacturer could guarantee the archivability of my plates. That's the biggest thing that I'm concerned with, especially for negatives. Handling, I think this is just as strong and as decent, as good as the Gum Sandrack or Shellac. The only question mark on this is it archival? Will it work? Will it withhold? You know, maybe we're being vain and egotistical, but I sell photographs, and I just don't feel good about having a big question mark hanging on a photograph that I've sold. You know, I don't want that coming back to haunt me. So the only reason I don't use this exclusively is that archivability question. But it's good stuff. How do you apply it? It's really easy to apply. No heat, no flame, no nothing. Pour it onto the plate. Sometimes it's going to have a very thick blue, very almost opaque color to it, and you're just going to roll it around the plate, drain off the excess, and it's going to drain for a while, and then you have to tilt it back, get it all leveled out again, and then have a perfectly level space that's super clean, that has no air movement, and that won't be disturbed. And lay it flat, because now you're a big magnet for stuff in the air to fall on it, right? So it needs to be a super clean environment. Lay it flat, and within a day, it'll just be a smooth, clean, clear, like a piece of glass laid over the plate. It works really well. Like I said, if they could assure us that this would be good to go, I'd use this exclusively. There's no reason not to, other than archivability. It's a lot easier to use. There's no danger of flames. There's cost is probably about the same. I'm not really sure. I believe this is a liter. Actually, it might be even cheaper, less expensive. This is 946 mils, so it's almost a liter, and I think it was maybe 40 euros, 35 US, something like that. And boy, it goes a long way. So if you're not really concerned about the archivability or the archival quality of your plates, give it a whirl. Give it a whirl. Yeah, I mean, you'll like that. You can find it easily online, too. In Europe, in anywhere.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. Anything else on varnishing?
Yes, maybe the next question, because I would like to stay with Sandrack, because now I find finally a supplier where I can get it easily. There is no reason to switch it, and if we have now the approved advantage of that archiving, that we know that it works, this is the most important. Then thing, because if you really take your work seriously, you have to count on this one of the most important points. Yeah, it's really very important. But I just want to would like to try in the future also shellac, but I do not see any bigger advantage between shellac and Sandarak. I have read a very interesting document from Gerald Figel. Maybe you know him. Gerald Figel, you know him maybe?
Yeah, I know of him. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And he has made very interesting research. And he wrote or he created an interesting document about shellac and history. I have read it, and it really brings lots of information in my mind now. And he also mentioned this discussion about this little bit coloring between shellac and Sandarak. It's let's say hot topic sometimes. Some people say that Gum Sandarak it's a little bit or dark can darken your image. We can maybe partially agree if the Sandarak is, I don't know, maybe mixed in bigger concentration or some kind.
Yeah,
you know,
you can always clean Sandarak just like you clean shellac. If you want to filter Sandarak, if you don't want that amber in it, just filter it out. It's another step. You know, it's another a step in a process to clean it. I would probably adjust my exposure, make a little brighter images if you're concerned with it dulling it down or tampering down or adding color to it, or get rid of the color completely and go to a modern acrylic, or if you want to go through and filter the shellac. And shellac was very popular in the 19th century. It was used a lot. There's no doubt about what the validity of it. I mean, there's, it's a moot point. They used a lot of shellac. My theory is that they used whatever was cheapest and most available that worked a lot of times. I mean, that's just the fact of the matter. So I say do what you like, stick with what you like, but improve your techniques. If you're using, Gum Sandarak or shellac, improve your techniques. Keep those things that I mentioned earlier in mind, and whatever varnish you're using, it's going to improve. And if you're having problems with color shifts or you don't like the Sandarak, spin the Sandarak out or spin the shellac out. You can carbon filter that stuff, and it's fine. I mean, whatever your preference is. People think I say, one size fits all in this, and that's exactly the opposite of what I'm saying. I'm saying this size fits me, and here are the reasons, and see if any of them resonate with you. If they don't resonate with you, leave it alone and go on and find your own way. I'm trying to I've done this for a very long time, and I'm trying to have consistent, standardized results for my work. And it's very, very difficult to do when you're chasing chemistry and you're chasing techniques around constantly. So I've stayed with one varnish, developed techniques, developed environments that it's most optimal in, and I make photographs that support that in post-production work, if that makes sense, right? So it's not a mystery to me what my photographs will look like varnished after I see them in the wash pan in there. I know exactly what they'll look like because I've stepped through it, and I know I know how I make chemistry, I know how I apply it, I know the environment, I know all of that. So find what works for you, and if Gum Sandarak doesn't work, go to shellac, go to modern, go to whatever works for you. I think the most important thing here is that you need to varnish your plates, and that's really the bottom line. And if you don't varnish them, I surely wouldn't think they'd hang around for an indefinite period of time. Sometimes you'll get lucky and they'll hang around for quite a while, and It'll be amazing. If you live out in the country, or if you cover your unvarnished plates with glass and seal them up and put them away. I've got one here from early 1870s. It wasn't varnished, but it was sealed with glass, and it looks like it was made yesterday. So, you know, it's protect your photographs. If you're interested in keeping your photographs, or you want your children or grandchildren or great-grandchildren or your posterity of whatever kind, or the world, whatever, if you want those photographs to be around, you're going to have to do something to protect that silver from the sulfides in the air.
Okay.
Quinn?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I want just to finish this discussion, not to speak only about this issue, but I think it's also important this topic for other people too, because they are thinking, I think, like me, about alternatives and if go this or other way. But you have really yeah. I fully agree with you, because now I am on the path where I know where I am, and it is very important that I am finally at such a position that I can control my chemicals, I can control my technical skills, and I do want to play with other alternatives and lose my time if I know that Sundarak is for me no problem to use it. The only question for me was big issue that I have really the dissolving problem, and I have destroyed really very beautiful plates which does not exist anymore. For instance, the plate, if you see my profile picture there,
Yeah.
I have switched camera off. It was the exposure was made by my 8 years old daughter.
She's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, and she made it, and the plate was beautiful, but yeah, I have not tested or I don't know what the problem is. I have simply dissolved completely the plate.
Okay, so let's address that, and then we'll go to Dale's question. Jan is talking about a very what do we call it? A very typical common problem, especially in Europe, and I'll tell you why, especially in Europe. It completely makes sense. So for my European brothers and sisters, this is really important. When you have here in America, we have ethanol, alcohol, ethanol, alcohol, and that alcohol is 95%, meaning that's 5% water, or H2O, let's say, H2O. So, and we can go down from there. It's 95% and down. And this is what's called 190 proof, or in other words, 5% water. And the water is what's most important here, for the simple fact that alcohol is a solvent. Alcohol dissolves things, just like we talked about going around your plate and grabbing all that stuff. It's a solvent, so it's gonna strip things. If that solvent is too strong and it's not watered down enough, it's going to destroy that collodion. It's going to melt that collodion, okay? So in Europe, you have 96%, 97%, 98%, and even higher. You have pure-grade ethanol, a medical ethanol there.
I use 96%, yeah.
How many?
96.
Yeah. 96 is right on the border of having this happen. So what's the situation? Why is Jan talking about, I've had these beautiful portraits and all these great images that I've made or we've made, and I go to varnish them, protect them, like you're saying, and they just melt away.
Sorry for interruption. I know that the people have also issue with old collodion, if you use old collodion. But
that's what it's based on, Jan. You won't have,
was let's say reliable, fresh, or
19 hours.
It's not that issue, yeah.
So how old was your collodion when you made these plates?
I use formula from Osterman, which works very good for me, and I know that this collodion you can use for months. So the collodion was, I think, 6 months old. Yeah, with this is with mixed with how it's called this I have forgotten. Sorry.
Bromide, cadmium bromide, lithium bromide.
Exactly. Cadmium bromide is there. Yes.
Yeah. The salts don't really matter. What it is, it's the nitrocellulose being affected by the alcohol. So once you make a collodion and it starts breaking down and changing colors like that, right? That's a perfect collodion for me. That's my QC right there. That's my baby. Once you make a collodion and it starts breaking down, and the iodine's released, the iodides break down, it's released, it goes to red, it goes, yellow, orange, darker orange, red kind of thing. Typically, this stage and beyond, you're going to run the risk, if you use very strong alcohol, you're going to run the risk of melting that nitrocellulose or that collodion off the plate. So you have to take into consideration two things. Number one, and the most important, is find 95% alcohol, or if you use anything higher, make sure you do the math and dilute it down with distilled water. You need to add that additional water to the alcohol before you make the varnish. Or you can do it after. I'd recommend, you already know there's a problem, do it before. And then secondly, don't try to avoid using very old red collodion, and that's going to exacerbate you're guaranteed melting an image away. If you make a photograph with old red collodion, then use 96% alcohol in your gum sand rack, it's going to melt away. It just is. I can almost guarantee it. So those two things you can mitigate. First off, either manage the existing alcohol you have by adding water to it. Do the math on it. Whatever percentage you're using, do the math on it. So you come out to roughly 5% water, and then use as new and fresh collodion as you can. I would put that one to the side and concentrate on adding the alcohol, the water to the alcohol. That will mitigate the problem of your melting images, almost guaranteed. And if you have existing varnish already made that's melting images, start adding distilled water. 10 drops at if you have 300 mils, add 10 drops. Do it. Make an image. See if it melts it, and do that until it stops melting the image. Add 10 drops of distilled water until it stops melting the image. That will tell you where your threshold is on that particular volume of gum sandarac with that high ethanol content, or the lack of water in the ethanol.
Yes. Now I have a plate what I made 2 days ago or 3 days ago. Now redeveloped plate. And yeah, now I'm in front of problem how to varnish it, because I would like to test it before, because I do not want to destroy it. That's negative. Yeah. I'm thinking about to. I don't know how to test it. Yeah, I have one.
Do you have the same collodion that you made the image with, or is that gone?
Please, can you repeat your question? Because
you said you have a negative that you want to varnish, but you're afraid to varnish it, right?
Yes, exactly.
So do you have any of that collodion that you made that negative with? Do you have any of that left?
Yes. I still have the exact same collodion.
Okay,
for making.
What you do is you make a couple of plates with that collodion. You wash them, fix them, and dry them, and then you use those as a test bed. You use those as a tester for your varnish, and see if it melts those. And then if you're good to go, varnish your negative. If you're not good to go, adjust accordingly, and then varnish your negative. Does that make sense?
So, yes. Shall I simply make a plate like an exposure of an object, or simply
I'd make a plate with an object on it so you can see it melt away if it does in fact melt away. Just so you have a visual reference, right? Set up a soda can and photograph it, or a doorknob, and then process the plate and see if the varnish melts it or not.
Exactly. Yeah, it's logical. Yeah, to make it like this. Yeah.
Yeah. Try that and report back and let us know how it works.
Yes. Well, because I have now about 300 milliliters of this Sanderac with strong alcohol, and I have added some water inside, but I'm still not sure, and I'm aware of it. Yeah.
Well, if you have that same collodion, make it 2 or 3 plates, and then that'll tell you right away. Because the collodion, nothing else matters. It's the collodion. It's the nitro. Actually, it's not even the collodion. Collodion is nitrocellulose with alcohol and ether added. It's the nitrocellulose that breaks down and melts.
Mm-hmm.
What'd you have for us, Dale?
Thank you.
No problem, Jan.
There. I hope my wife never finds that mute button.
Find the what?
The mute.
Oh,
the mute button.
So
Yeah, Quinn, I'm having some fun here. In fact, when I took off just a few minutes ago, I had to go check a plate. I've stumbled onto some varnish that they use on bowling alley hardwood floors in bowling alleys.
Yes.
I diluted it down, and it's a latex base, which is really nice. So I've diluted it down pretty heavy with distilled H2O. And what I'm finding rather interesting, and I was curious if you've done a similar experiment with gum Sanderac or other varnishes. What I'm finding is if I dilute the carrier, dilute it down more, so I've got a lot more carrier than I have varnish itself, and do 2 or 3 coats or pours of varnish, I seem to increase the density of the plate. Now, I know that's not actually happening, but it gives that illusion of occurring. And it seems to be giving a much richer plate at the end of the day. Have you tried that with Sanderac or other varnishes?
I'll tell you a story. Years ago, it's interesting you bring this up because that's very true. Years ago, I had someone run a little experiment. And what they did is they worked in a body shop, auto body shop. They made repairs on vehicles. And they had this this final coat lacquer, this varnish, if you will, that was supposed to be very neutral, very inert to most everything. And he took a plate in, he sprayed the plate with the lacquer. I think he did 3 or 4 coats, let him dry, sprayed it again, let him dry. And you're exactly right. It almost started turning the image into almost 3-dimensional. Not really, but almost 3-dimensional, because like you're saying, as we peer through that clear coating, it does tend to give us the visual illusion of depth and contrast and all kinds of things. I never pursued that. In fact, that's what made me look into this. That's what got me onto this modern acrylic kit years ago. Looking into this was searching for that product, for like go into like an auto body paint booth, take 100 plates in there and just varnish them all 2 or 3 coats and you're done, right? It does make sense. The only thing that I would look at is what is actually in that product, and is there any known conflicts with what you're using in your plate, in your chemistry or your base? Most of your stuff, most everything is evaporated or gone away off a plate, right? So what you have left is you have a thin layer of collodion, you have your substrate, glass, metal, plastic, whatever. Then you have a thin layer of collodion. And then on top of that, and writing just within that collodion, is the pure metallic silver, or the image. So that's all you have. You have dried nitrocellulose, because there's no more solvents in it, it's dried, and you have pure metallic silver. So the only risk you run is if you put a product on there that will interact with the nitrocellulose, and I've never seen anything really interact on that level with the silver nitrate, or not the silver, the pure metallic silver. So it's basically a question of, is that product inert enough to ride on top of that and not penetrate into that nitrocellulose? Because that's what the alcohol, we were just talking to Jan about, does, is it goes through that, penetrates into the collodion, melts it, and the image melts away. So I have not personally done that, but it got me on the kick of this modern acrylic and looking at these modern varnishes. This may be the way it goes at the end of the day, depending on, you know, as technology goes on and they can say, yeah, it's completely inert, perfect glossy finish. Unless you're a reenactment or you have some good reason to stay true to the original formulas. And gum sandarac wasn't that popular in the 19th century. A lot of people used it, but there was shellac and other products people used. Shellac was quite high in use. But at the end of the day, it may be one of these modern acrylics that people end up going to with collodion. Right now, I'm sticking with gum sandarac because it does have that proven track record, and we know what it is.
Yeah, I subscribe to your notion as well. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. This is such a finicky process. You have to really, as I'm learning, you have to get used to one technique, one process, master that, and know you can get it with consistent results every time.
There you go.
I'm rather
method, if you will. That's very true, Dale.
I'm rather fortunate, and I'm so new at this and so naive. Man, I'm all over the place, so I can do what I'm doing with it. You know, I'm just ignorant to the process.
You're reaching for everything to put on your plate.
Well, exactly. So my plates aren't good to start with, so I don't care if I ruin them. You know. So what I'm finding with this finish, though, it's a very, very tough acrylic. It's a synthetic without question, but I'm finding when I dilute it, it pours incredibly easy. You got to be very careful though not to get ridge lines, as you've suggested. It's very easy to do.
Yeah.
And I haven't quite figured out how to get rid of those yet, although I did notice what you did, and I'll be trying that next. But what I am finding though is there is no readily apparent negative effect, like chewing into the getting into the collodion.
That's a good first sign. That's a great first sign.
I'm at this juncture, I'm seeing nothing but positives because I really love. Now, I've got enough experience working in silver that I know that I'm not creating any density through the pour because that's already been done. But I'm creating, whether I'm building layers of acrylic and it gives it that sense of depth, or as you say, that 3D, that illusion of 3D.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but it seems to be working.
Well, I'll tell you what, Dale, you just hit on it. If you make and everyone here that's made images on clear glass, and I know probably all of you have actually, make an image on clear glass, make an ambrotype, and then turn that image around so you're peering through the glass, and so you have 1 to 2 millimeters of glass. It changes the image completely. That's exactly what you're doing there, Dale. You're actually giving the appearance of depth. Or I've had people say, I've done a lot of experiments with ambrotypes where I'll reverse them and I'll coat the collodion side with asphaltum and blacken the collodion side with asphaltum, so you're peering through the glass and the glass is really smooth and the image is 1 to 2 millimeters behind that glass sitting on the back side. And people come up and look at, oh man, look, it's like water or something. It's like they're trying to express that the image is magnified, quote unquote, not literally, but figuratively. The image is enhanced by peering through that 1 or 2 millimeters of glass. And that's, in effect, what you're doing there, is you're adding that depth and adding that illusion. It'll make it shinier, glossier, more depth. It'll make it richer. It feels rich. In fact, that modern varnish here, that modern acrylic, I can look at this in real life here, and it's rich and deep, and it has not the big splotch on the top, but it's got a depth to it that you don't really get. It's the shiny, and the sheen quality and the thickness of it that makes this very attractive for a lot of people. This modern varnish, and it's basically what you're doing.
Yeah, it has en français the je ne sais quoi.
Je ne sais quoi.
Yeah.
Oui, 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 oui.
I can't explain it. I can't describe it. I like what I'm getting. It may work and it may not. I don't know. I don't particularly care. I'm having fun doing it. And
we need people. We need people like you out there. We need people in this community that will test and experiment and using almost the scientific method. Give us good data. Give us good results. And tell us the truth about what happens or what not. That's kind of what moves us forward. Look, you know, I get email quite a bit of the time saying.
Just interject there just for a second.
Yeah.
When you say we need innovators or people to move things forward, the problem with this is, though, I shouldn't say the problem. The blessing with this is we have young people like Terry around who will still be around in 100 years' time to see if.
Terry's my age. Terry, what are you talking about?
How am I doing, Terry?
About the same age, I think.
Okay, I'll let you. Thanks, Quinn. You've answered my question. I'm just having fun now. Okay, thanks.
No, appreciate it. To your point, Dale, I often tell people, I get emails quite often that say, "Hey, check this out. I've come up with this," and I encourage people to do that. And I want to know about them. I'd love to share them if I can, and employ them myself if they're feasible and reasonable. But a lot of times they'll come up with a solution that adds more to the process, that makes the process more arduous. The result may be good, but the cost-benefit analysis on the result versus what you're adding to the process, for me, a lot of times cancels one another out. So what I tell people is find ways to make the process better with less, because we already have so many steps and so many things to do in the process that I don't want to add. You should see my place. I don't want to add more stuff, right? I have enough stuff. I want fewer steps to do. I want better results, and that's what we should be striving for. And those are the kind of innovations that I think are really, really beneficial.
As my son would say, Quinn, the laziest people are the most innovative.
The laziest are most innovative. That could be true. Yeah. Maybe. You know, American innovation really comes from laziness. It does, and
True.
We have a lot of innovation in America. Or we did, but that way to get there faster and better is an American mantra. I mean, that's what we do. That's what we do. I think at the end of the day, the idea is to do what we do the very best we can do, keeping in mind that if we want our photographs to be around in the future, keep that forefront in our mind and work from that basis. And then if we can eliminate steps, improve steps, find different chemicals, different products, different things to use that are safe, that are good, and not only safe for archivability, but safe to use, your own personal health, obviously, first and foremost. But if we can move forward in those areas, that's what I think is improvement. And I haven't really seen anything major in collodion in many years, I don't think. I'd have to. I've never really thought about the question. I'd have to sit and think about that for a minute. But that's the idea: better, faster, with less stuff, and that's what I'm all about. So I get excited when somebody comes up with a little this or a little that, and I can employ it and makes my life a little easier. Or I can share something, makes people's lives a little easier, their images a little better. But first and foremost, I think, is archivability, obviously. And so when we talk about varnishing, whether it's modern, whether it's gum sanderac, whatever you're using, at the end of the day, you want to make sure that it's archival and that it's the easiest, most simple methodology, and the most simple techniques, the better. And I know some of them just aren't, and it's difficult for a lot of people. So.
One of the other nice things about trying these alternative processes as well, I'm getting ahead of myself, and I should just step back. For others that want to try that, if they live in a city, you can go to not your typical paint store, but where the pros go, where they get custom-made paints and mixes and so on.
Yeah.
The folks that are working in there in many cases, tend to be chemists and are very, very good and knowledgeable of what they do, and they can answer these questions regarding the pigments and the content and so on. The thing that I'm also trying here, and I only have two types now. I have the high gloss, and I also have a satin. And what I'm finding is the satin finish gives a really nice, dare I say, touch and feel to a finished portrait, and I prefer it more so than the gloss, to be honest with you.
Wow, nice. Yeah, that's a good point.
And if you think much like we used to use in the darkroom with silver papers or whatever we wish to call them, of course, we typically had 3 or 4 different finishes on papers we would use, depending on what we were doing to get that that final effect that we were after. And I'm finding this is offering much that same. That's how I got on this kick. Actually, it's offering much the same flexibility. Now, the question is the archival quality. That is the unknown for me at this point.
Well, whenever you want to come on one of these shows and take an hour and show us all this stuff, when you have it, the floor is yours.
Never.
Never.
Remember, I said my plates are not very good, so I don't mind if I screw them up. But I have to go back and learn how to make a good plate. So
we don't care about a good plate at that point in time. We care about a good varnish that's archival.
I don't know how you. Yeah, that's right. I don't know how you'd ever show something like this on a webinar. Anyhow, it'd be very difficult.
Well, what I mean is, you talk about diluting it down. What is the product? How do you dilute it down? How do you apply? Just like what you saw me do this morning. Same thing. I mean, yeah, you can't really. I mean, yeah, I can sit here and look at that gum Sanderac finish and see that it's perfect and it's beautiful and it's, other than my glove print right there at the top, but just showing the technique and talking about the product is important. And then people can try it or look into it or find some substitute in their area. But yeah, if anybody ever wants to come on here and show something that's valid and worthwhile that you've had success with, I mean, this isn't just me. I know it seems that way, but I want to have the idea is interaction. You know, the idea is sharing knowledge, dropping the knowledge, and I think that's what's really important at the end of the day, is having a place where you can go once a month, once a week, whatever it is, go, share information, get information, look at work, which we're going to do here in a little bit, and just have a good, you know, we don't get this kind of stuff in real life. I mean, we just don't. My life is so busy. I have to plan these things out in advance, and do I have a block of time, and what do I, you know, all that stuff. So I know everybody else's life is that busy. And so to be able to come together like this with this technology, I think is awesome, number one. And number two, it should be a forum for everyone that wants to share. If you have something valid to share, I want you to jump in and share it, because I can learn, believe it or not, I can learn, and I can learn a lot. I don't know everything. I mean, I don't. I feel comfortable about what I know, but man, if I ever think I've stopped learning about this process, put me down. Cut me off.
You know, Quinn, I'm having one issue that I'm hoping I can get corrected. When I make a plate, and it's kind of going into an exposure thing here, I've had to teach myself, and I've used your book, talk to you. I've learned from other people, learned from seeing other people's plates and the exposure, and I have a lot of years in a darkroom. But when I have them done and I want to put them on display, I have to have a certain type of light aiming towards it in order for it to, look nice. So when you're selling these or you're out marketing these, you have to encourage people and explain to people that, yes, if you put it on the living room wall, it's going to be dark, unless you have to have a light directing at it. And one of the things that I would like an opportunity to do is I really would love to see other plates. I've not seen other people's plates. I see what they look like when we touch, when we make them a little bit brighter to put on the internet after we take a quick shot of it.
Right.
But I really don't know what a well-exposed plate looks like.
Yeah,
it's a big issue for me, because I sometimes think, God, this is such a great image, but I can't tell if it's exposed properly because it gets dark.
Yeah. And
yours look great. I mean, behind you, is that a plate on the wall behind you?
No, those are prints.
Okay, those are prints. Yeah. Now, the ones that you're holding up today, that you were varnishing, those, to me, that one there, I mean, it's so bright. Now, I'm wondering if it's because it's, it looks excellent and it's perfectly exposed. I'm wondering if it's because of the exposure to me is great. It's great. But when I'm wondering if it's the light from the computer, or if that's what it really looks like just on a wall without a special light pointing towards it.
No, you're right, Terry. Here's the thing, and we're talking about ambrotypes in this case. So we're talking about images on metal, images on glass, black glass, clear glass, whatever, and blackened on the back. So What we're talking about is having an ambrotype displayed, and this is classic. So this is something I've had photographic exhibitions in the early 90s, regular film photographic exhibitions, right? That I never had to deal with this before until the early 2000s when I started showing wet collodion work. And what happens is, once you put them up in a gallery against a white wall and don't put any light onto them, they're just going to disappear. They're just going to absolutely disappear. And if you have any kind of UV glass protection or anything over them, even worse. Now you're down. I mean, you're not going to get the visuals. You're just not. You're just not going to happen. And that's the nature of positive wet collodion images. It's not Terry. It's the nature of the image. It needs. Think about how much light it needed to be created and what kind of light it was created with. That's the same kind of light and the same kind of idea you want to use displaying those images. It's not like a reflective white paper print that you can shine a flashlight on and the thing just jumps out. This requires a lot of, hopefully 5600 Kelvin temperature light beamed directly at it. I mean, like a halogen spot right on that ambrotype. I have to tell every single gallery, I have to tell every single person that's putting up an exhibition that have a heart attack on the day they hang their glass on the wall and it looks like a bunch of dark, blotchy pieces of nothing in the image. There's a couple of ways you can improve that. If you don't have, and that's why I've always noticed too, a lot of people, I think, miss the beauty of the ambrotype by overexposing and trying to compensate for this.
Exactly.
This what we feel like is too dark of an image, and then you lose all that beautiful tonal range in that ambrotype. Everything that wet collodion has to offer you is lost with that 2 or 3 second more exposure, I think. And so they compensate by doing that, and you don't get those subtle tones and that really beautiful, intimate feel and detail that you would with a properly exposed ambrotype. Those properly exposed ambrotypes require an enormous amount of direct 5600 degree Kelvin temperature light on them to see them properly in a gallery. It just does. You just
need to be outside. I mean, I have to, in order to see them, you know, when I'm showing somebody in my house, I have to walk up to the window with the sun coming in.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But you can't just walk up to it. You have to have it at a certain angle.
They're a little bit like daguerreotypes, aren't they? A little bit. Not as extreme, but a little bit like daguerreotypes. And they do.
Well,
and what you're trying to do is you're trying to get that light to hit that silver and reflect back. And depending on the luminance of that silver and depending on the quality of that light and depending on the angle of the image and everything else, you're going to have to figure that out. But if the image is detailed and it looks good, you're on the right course. If you're holding it in your hand in the sun over here, I got a big window that that's what I do. I come out of the dark room right here, walk over to this diffused window, and I show people photographs. That's what you have to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now my thing is trying to come up with, when I'm hanging them around, you know, my home, or if somebody wants to buy one, I'm trying to come up with a creative way for them to be able to put lighting on that image because they want to see it.
Yes.
You know, you give one to somebody or they buy one for a gift for somebody and then they hang it on their wall and then they're like, yeah, you can't really see it, and they take it down and put it away. So I think we have another responsibility with our work, which is to teach people how to view these.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct, Terry. And we haven't got there in this live show because we're still trying to figure out how to make that good image, right?
Exactly.
So that will come, and the more opportunity people get to make good images, sell, exhibit, and do those kinds of things with the images, those will become more and more of an issue. You're just a little bit of an early adopter here.
Yeah.
It's very, very true. It's a reality for everyone making positives, and I'll tell you one quick way to get out of that quandary: make negatives and do prints.
Exactly.
That I have I never had a problem with showing my work in galleries because, like you said, I had to educate them. The first time I learned about it, I think I had my first wet collodion show in, I want to say 2004-ish, somewhere in there, and boy, it was a nightmare. It was a disaster. We had to redo the whole thing because it doesn't work when it's framed on the wall and there's no direct light on them. You can't do it. I mean, some of the images were okay. One's closer to the window, but they all need direct light to be appreciated. It just that's the way it is. But someday we'll get there, and it's a very good point, and it's one of the reasons, not very high on the list by any means, but it's one of the reasons why I'm working all in negatives now. I can make prints. They're traditional. They can go in most galleries without any special adjustments, and it makes my life a little easier that way, and they're reproducible. But having said that, there's nothing like a beautiful, ambrotype that's well lit, that's properly exposed, and that would look dark in any other situation, hanging on the wall, well lit, and a nice presentation, I think.
Right, but I also think it's important for people that are having issues and questions about learning how to get the right exposure to realize themselves that it's not going to look like a print on a plate.
Yeah. No, it's a different thing.
And so when you try to, make it a little bit darker, thinking you're going to get more contrast, or you want to expose it a little bit more, you're going to get the opposite effect.
Right. I will give you one tip. If you frame your ambrotypes up and you have your mat around that ambrotype, I would not pick a white mat. I would pick a mat that will not compete with that light-intensive plate. In other words, you don't want your eye being distracted by the white like a traditional print. You want that matte to kind of go away and let the luminous, the brilliance of the plate, what's there, if it's well lit, to pop out. So you don't want your image competing with a white matte around it. So I'd recommend looking at other colors of mattes. I've seen black. I've seen, not black. I'd go with a darker, something in the realm of a brown or a green, just off a little bit, not brilliant white, and it'll make your images pop better. That's
probably why I tend to use ivory and ash frame.
Yeah.
But that's probably why back when they were making these, they were using the red velvet and the gold around it to make it.
Absolutely. You didn't have anything competing with that image at all. And on top of everything else, these images were in cases, right? In our little our little cases. And you're right. As an example, I'll pitch this guy again because I think this is really cool. These are awesome. You can buy these. This guy makes them, and this is why this is such a beautiful little way to do. I just love small images, and this is just such a beautiful way to make a presentation. You don't have anything competing here. They're small and intimate. You can pick them up. You can angle them and look at them just like a daguerreotype. And this guy's name is right. Let's see. What is it?
Is it Michael Rhodes?
No, it's not Michael Rhodes. It's W.E. Fain & Sons.
Oh.
Made in USA. W.E.F.E.A.N. & Sons. And I've got his website, and I told him that I'd show these on the show. And these are just really beautiful, really well made.
Can you spell his name again?
Yeah. Capital W period, capital E period, and then Fain. F as in Foxtrot, E-A-N, and Sons. W.E. Fain & Sons. And he's got a website out there, and they're reasonably priced, and they're just beautiful little presentations like that. I just love those. If I ever did a positive show again, I'd make the entire show quarter plate or half plate or something, and every image would be an intimate experience where you pick this little object up, and you open it up and you reveal that image to yourself, and close it back up and put it on the stand and go to the next.
I've been actually experimenting with old makeup cases and trying to put them into you know, an old makeup case.
Nice.
Had.
Terry, I tried that and I got strange looks because I was using makeup. Anyway,
we need some to take the glare off your forehead, Dale.
Oh, shut up.
Oh, bam!
All right. Well, I'm going to let you talk. Thank you.
Hey, no problem. No, this is an interactive show. We want everybody to jump in here. Those are great ideas and comments.
I just posted on the group chat the product that I was using for that. It's actually a urethane, not a varnish. I'm sorry.
Cesdura, a water-based urethane finish. Yeah. I think. Let me see. Let me read what's in here, guys. I'll tell you what's contains 2-hydroxydiethylamine benzotriol acrylate monomers. Wow.
Of course it does. We knew that.
Yeah, I mean that's just that. Liquitex.com is where you get this stuff. It doesn't really go into anything. It's archival removable varnish for acrylic and oil paintings. That's what this is used for.
You're one up on me then because I'm not saying archival.
Okay, so that was the question, and even this says archival. I have right now currently 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 6 years test so far with this with plates. Absolutely zero problems. I put it in the window every chance I get. No problems. Run it underwater. Beat it up. No problem so far. But you know,
you're going to get a UV shift, I think, from sunlight. You should have seen some fading by now.
Oh my God! In Denver, are you kidding me? 5,300 feet above sea level. The sun is like right there. I mean, I bump into it if I go outside here. It's so hot and unbelievable. UV is outrageous here, which makes for great image making, but it's hard on cars. You see here in Denver, I'm sure a lot of you have been to Denver, but you'll see cars with paint jobs all faded and their dashboards all faded and cracked. The sun is so intense here. You leave anything out in this high desert sun for any length of time, it goes away fairly fast. And while I haven't left those images out directly in the sun, I put them on my little exhibition stands, my little stand holders for half whites, and I put them up in the window and just leave them there for months. And I haven't seen anything negative from this so far. It doesn't mean anything. It's anecdotal, and it doesn't really mean a lot. But it does say it's archival. I don't know. You go back on them and say, they'd probably say, hey, we didn't tell you to use it on photographs. We said for oil paintings, you know, that kind of thing. So,
just to follow up on what Terry was asking about the display, I had read about a month or so, it wasn't all that long ago, and I was looking while you two were chatting and I couldn't find it. I was hoping I could, so I could post the URL as well so others could source it. But there was a great study. It was not an academic study, but it was well cited, and it was a good document about the to get the best viewing of any artwork, one should replicate the lighting of the viewing plane to duplicate that of which it was created. And it kind of followed online, but with some more technical detail as to what you folks were talking about. And it makes sense. It makes perfect sense. I mean, anyone who works in any medium long enough knows you change the light source over how it was created, and it looks different. It takes on a whole new...
that's how we see color, right? I mean, that's how we see value and tone and hue and luminescence.
Yeah. Okay,
yeah, totally. I just posted in the chat and so did Terry. There you go. That is W.E. Fain & Sons website. I would highly recommend you checking these out if you're interested. This is a beautiful way to display work. I think you can get them all the way up to half plate. He did mention, I said, I love half plate and whole plate. Those are my two formats that I work mostly in. And then some 16 by 20 or 30 by 40 big stuff occasionally. In the past I have. And I believe, don't quote me, but I believe he said he could do whole plate, up to whole plate. So those would get quite pricey, But boy, what a beautiful presentation to be able to do that. Yeah, I'm kind of excited to. I'll give you a quick update here before we jump into some developing stuff. Oh, you're looking. Okay, yeah. Terry's looking for an 8x10 camera. So if anybody's looking to sell, let her know. Speaking of which, I have an 8x10 and a 20x20 coming from Chamonix as we speak right now. So I'm excited about those two new additions to the family. I have a 1620 and I have an 8x10 Chamonix right now. So I'll probably use them for workshops, but I'm excited about that. I'm excited to see their new developments on their 20x20. The 8x10 camera that's coming, I used when I was in China, and they're shipping it over to me now. So, and the 20x20 is their brand new model, which I'm really excited to check out. But having said that, just a quick update on my end. I'm leaving on. I have a workshop the 4th, 5th, and 6th, a negative printing workshop of September. I'm leaving on the 7th or 8th. And I will be gone until about the 17th or 18th, somewhere in there. I have another workshop back here. But I'm going to Wyoming, Medicine Bow. I'm going to Devil's Tower, Pine Ridge, South Dakota, and then back down here to Sand Creek. And I'm making a major push on this final 2 or 3 week photo exhibition, junket, or I said exhibition, excursion, that's the word I was looking for. This final photo excursion to finish off my Ghost Dance project. And here's my plan. Speaking of work and presenting and everything else, I have shown very little from the Ghost Dance project, and there's a good reason. Number one, I'm saving most of it so I can print over the winter. It's all negatives, mostly whole plate. And I am also just got an offer from the Revality folks to show my Ghost Dance work in Barcelona in June of 2016 in Spain, which I'm looking forward to. It'll be all prints. It'll be albumin, salt, and chlorine chloride prints of these sites. And it won't only be sites. I'm including flora. I'm including some of the some of the growth on the site. So fauna, flora, things on the sites that I thought are very interesting to think about, having these people part of the land, part of the soil, their bodies decomposing, and they're they're going back into the earth, and then this life is springing forward. And I'm working on this concept, but I'm making the last excursion next month. I hope the last excursion, and printing. I'm going to be printing over the winter time, and hopefully come out with 10 sets in February or March. Come out with 10 sets of about 30 plates, about 300 prints, and 10 shows. That's my goal. I'll see if I make it or not, and I'll put a huge caveat on it, but that's my goal. Talk about ambitious, I guess I am, but that's where I'm going to go. So all my work will be whole and half plate prints, matted and framed, or just matted and shipped off. I'm not really sure right now, and maybe framed up on the other side. But I'll be able to do 10 shows concurrently, and I think I'll do the series of 10. So there'll be 10 editioned images of each plate. And I'm not going to destroy the negatives, but I won't print any more from them. So it'll be limited in that capacity, but it'll give me 10 exhibitions. And then from whatever that sells, I know some of the shows, some of the prints will sell more than others, and we'll have this big convoluted thing going on. But it will save one complete series, and then I'll make a book. I've never done a Kickstarter, but I'll probably do it in this case, just for the simple fact that I'm going to do a book of the work, and I'm going to have all the proceeds, every single penny from that book will go to the American Indian College Fund here in Denver, Colorado, for the education of the native people here. And that's the only way that I can think of that I can make this project worthwhile to me, because if I just tell people about these terrible events,
show them where it happened in some interesting way and make them think a little bit about it. It's great. It's that's, to me, that's the successful accomplishment of art, to my mind. But I want to give something back tangibly. And the project's costing me so much money. I've been on it 3 years now, and it's very, very expensive. I'm into it many, many, many dollars. And so I can't just outright, if they want a set of these prints, and I hope they do, some institution here in Denver that's directly dealing with the Cheyenne and the Arapaho massacres, I want to give them an entire set. And so maybe I'll get some local traction with that too. But all the book proceeds will go to the American Indian College Fund. I'll sell the prints in the shows to exhibitions to recoup some of the cost of the project. But that's my goal and that's my plan. Now, the big question is what do I do after next year? Do I just fade away and I'm done? Do I go away? I don't have any plans. I don't have any more projects. I don't have nothing is striking me to work on. So I don't know what's going to happen to me next year. I don't know if maybe I can just ride off into the sunset and have this nice, beautiful ending, and which wouldn't be bad. I wouldn't mind getting off the horse at a peak time. I wouldn't mind doing that. So it's a real possibility that I might do that. Having said that, though,
you'll never stop, Quinn.
What's that?
You're never going to stop. Just face it. It doesn't happen to people like us.
I'm trying to deny that, but you know what I don't want to find myself doing, though? Seriously, I do not want to find myself doing forced work, doing work that I'm not passionate about that means something to me. If I'm doing it just to make money, or if I'm doing it just to do it, or to stay in be a cog in the wheel, to remain a cog in the wheel, I don't think that's compelling enough for me to do that. I can't be that dishonest to myself. I'll still teach, I'll still do those things, but right now I don't have anything on the horizon. What do you got there, Dale? Ride to Nova Scotia and do a workshop. Yeah, well, I could do that. Yeah, I could do that for sure. You know what? Those kinds of things will probably start happening more and more after next year as well.
And I will serve lobster and nobody else can.
Awesome! You just convinced me. No, so not to bore you with that, but that's kind of my goals and plans. Let's see how this works out. Let's see what I have on paper, what I've been doing for the last almost 3 years now. Let's see how this kind of formal execution of making art and these ideas of projects, some people would call this commercial art. I guess I could see a case for that. I guess I could see a case for making that commercial art, but in the context of, with the intention that I'm approaching it with, I don't think it can be commercial art, because it's not truth with a capital T. You know, it's my take on these locations in the western United States where these terrible things happen, and I'm interpreting them in a certain way and then presenting them to the public in a certain way. So I don't know that it's art. Or I don't know that it's commercial in the sense of it's not about money. The only financial aspect to me is I've got a lot of money involved in doing it that I'd like to recoup, and I can do that easily. And my bigger concern is that having something profitable, and I don't mean just financial, but having something worthwhile given to that community, given back to the American Indian College. I think education is the only real valid way, other than if you're going to go to South Dakota and work on that reservation and feed those people and get them off alcohol and get them treated for diabetes and unemployment and depression and suicide, all the terrible things that are happening on those prisoner of war camps is what they really are. The only thing I can do, the only way I can see art serving that purpose well, is to do a book, sell the book, and give all the proceeds to the American Indian College Fund. So let's see if that happens. That's my goal. That's what I'll be doing. So if I disappear for a little while here and there, that's where I'll be. I don't know if I'll do a show next month. I probably will, but it'll probably be toward the end of the month. Maybe I can give you a little update then. But it's been a wonderful fantastic ride on this project. It's been frustrating. It's the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life. I've traveled all over the world, and right here at home with this subject, with this topic, in my backyard where I was born and raised, I'm struggling. I'm struggling with this project. And it's a good type of struggle, but it's a struggle. And I'm hoping that I can pull this off. My biggest fear is that I won't do it justice. My biggest fear is that it's not good enough. It's just, I don't know, it's a hang up. Sometimes I feel like a fraud. Sometimes I feel like a phony. It's something that I have to, it's constantly worked through. It's something that I have to get up in the morning and tell myself that you're legitimate in doing this. It means something. It's important, because there's so many days that I don't feel like it is, that I don't think people care. I get so frustrated. I hope I don't offend anyone here, but if I do, click off and, whatever. Delete me, whatever you do. But I just get so frustrated when I see all this support and energy behind, these young nude model things and crazy, meaningless stuff to me that I just don't see any value in. And it's really frustrating to get up and go online and see this stuff while I'm trying to make work that I feel is important, not just personally for me, but hopefully for posterity, hopefully to contribute to the discourse on how we treat otherness. That's what all my work's been about, is how we treat otherness. What does that mean? How does that reflect in our community? How do we deal with that? How do we handle living on land that was stolen from the people that were here? America was not discovered. It was stolen. And we have to come to grips with that in some way. I was just reading the other day, Terry, one of the first massacre sites happened in the 16th century in Massachusetts. So this isn't just the Western United States. I'm just focusing on the last of the great, what they call Indian Wars, the big ones, the ones that really did the people in, really did the Native Americans in, really. And so that went on for hundreds of years, complete injustice to the people. And I just get really frustrated when I see people devoting, and this is just me, devoting energy to what I feel like are meaningless, worthless wastes of time. And that's...
Quinn?
Yes.
Let me say, I just want to say, it's really interesting you're saying this, because something that you and I share is our background in photojournalism, which usually a lot of people that I know that are photojournalists tend to have passion for certain things that happen. We're kind of like, we get social ideas in our head from something that impacts us, and we're trying to tell that story. And I think that if you have that background, you tend to be very passionate about the projects you're working on, and that's why mine is in South Africa, and I've been doing that for 26 years now, okay? Yeah. But the one thing I want to say to you is that when I was teaching at a couple of different places, the very first assignment, you teach them the technical stuff in a dark room and whatever, but the very first documentary assignment, and it's the hardest one I ever give them, it was always over Thanksgiving. They would all go back home, and they had a project, and they all had to make these outstanding documentaries of their community, and they'd all come back saying it was so boring. It was, and it's like I'd look at their work, and I'm like, I am so moved by what I see, because it's new to me. Yeah. And when you have someone coming to where you live in Denver and they want to go to all these places and photograph, you're like, oh my gosh, I've done this so many times, it's boring. But it's not really boring, because somebody else sees something else in it. So the greatest challenge that any of us can give ourselves when we're doing a documentary is to work in our own backyard. So you took that right out of that assignment. It's like it is the greatest challenge, and that's why you're frustrated with it. You have to go in and you have to look at it as if you've never walked in there before, and you need to start all over.
That's very good advice, and it's very true. It's
very true, and I'm trying to do the same thing. I've been in Western Massachusetts most of my life, and I've traveled the world too, but I come home and I'm trying to do this barn series because there's so many barns going falling down, and I drive by them all the time and don't think anything about it, and it's like, I have to stop and look at them and spend time with them, and I'm getting these images out of these barns that I've passed a million times and not looked twice at, thinking, how did I miss something that has such a story?
Yeah.
And so I guess I'm trying to encourage you too, you are taking on the greatest challenge of any artist, is to be able to be able to make and tell a story right in your backyard, because we just don't always see it as being different.
Yeah, it's great advice. Thank you, Terry. I agree with everything you just said. I feel
but
like
the naked photos, I totally understand, and I'm seeing and I'm not trying to put people down, because everybody has to have a subject that they're learning with, and you know, however, you know, I've been watching a mask that people, you know, posing naked with masks on and having naked women, and I'm like, what? I don't get it. But I have to remember that I never did naked people with masks on, but I used to take the flower vase and take a picture of the flower in the studio when I was starting. And I think a lot of people are there. And I don't think everybody is like, I don't think everybody's an artist. I think everybody can do the technical stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't think everybody is an artist. And I think that there are those of us that are deeply passionate about it that will go broke just to tell our story visually. And there's a difference between that, and that's why, you know, you and I talked the other day, but in that article they quoted me, literally quoted me saying, it's like purging my soul when I create a piece of art.
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing, and that's why you're frustrated, and you have to work with that frustration, because that frustration is going to make your story stand out, and it's going to happen because of that frustration. And if you didn't have it, I wouldn't even be interested in your project.
Well, thank you. That's very good advice. That's very comforting words to my ears and my head and my heart, simply for the fact it's very true. Very easy for me to go to China and make all these neat photographs that mean absolutely nothing to me, but they're stunning and beautiful. And I come home and I just go to these sites and I just freeze up. I can't get it. I can't do it. There's lights wrong. This is off. What is this? What am I doing? What is... You know, just doubting myself. You're a phony. You're a fake. You're a fraud. This is not what you're supposed to be doing. You know, it's just constant frustration.
I have a couple thoughts on this.
Sure. Welcome, Eric. Good to see you again, buddy.
Thank you, brother. Well, part of what we're dealing with is in the discussions that's been going on since, you know, pre-Socratic philosophy, this idea of art as form and beauty, and then what we're talking about, which some people might even use a critical term in the past of calling it didactic art. You know, we're trying to tell a story.
Didactic art, yes.
And there's, you know, I think there's a place for both, but I think you are in a space that I think I'm in as well, and that the frustration is a lot of times with the other photographers, and again, I don't want to be too critical. Occasionally I'll take a statuesque sort of photo of a nude back or something like that. But I think a lot of it is you can't expect people that don't have these ideas already to somehow articulate them in art. I mean, and it's part of the limitation that I'm running up against that's frustrating, is that to look at some of these images, you already have to have some knowledge to even frame what you're looking at. So one of them that I wanted to show today is kind of a part of that. You may look at this image and really get nothing but beauty out of it. Or you may be able to read something in that, but you already kind of have to have that vocabulary. And just showing an image sometimes is difficult. It's kind of like, I'm here in Alabama, so one of the most famous crossroads of photography and history and sociology is, of course, the Let Us Now Praise Famous Men. And one of my favorite writer, William Volman, says of it how it fell on its sword, you know, that it's almost impossible for them to have carried out the mission of that project with the limitations of, first, the form of photography, and secondly, your audience, which there has to be something to bridge the gap. And that's just, I think it's just a tough challenge, and we just have to keep kind of putting everything we can out there and trying to have the discussions around the art, because it's the discussions where you get to explain, well, this is what you're looking at. It's difficult to do that just in the imagery.
Well said. And, you know, I work in this process for obvious reasons, and I've said it many times, my little four-legged table, right? My little, what I call my basis, my tabletop is memory, identity, difference, and justice. And that memory component, it reminded me when you were talking there, Faulkner said the past is never past, right? And we deal with this and this process and these memories and these ideas through this aesthetic imagery. If you put the story, if you have, see, and I know what you're saying, Eric, I have a problem, you know, didactic art, and for those of you that don't know what didactic art is, or, you know, walk in a gallery and you see what's called a big didactic panel, you know, and you have this moral statement of almost a call to action, like Eric's right. People would call me a didactic artist, and it has a lot to do with my past with photojournalism and documentary work, and my interest in otherness, my interest in identity, my interest in difference, and my interest in history. So this process is a perfect process for me to tell stories through. It's built for it. It's made for it. But the problem, the didactic artist, the making moral statements, making a call to action that this is an injustice and this is what you should do, everyone. You know, this kind of proclamation to make something right morally, to bring justice into the equation, rather than just having a vase with a flower, a young nude man, a young female nude on a couch, or whatever you might do. My problem with that kind of art is there's no question that it's beautiful. There's no question that a rose in a vase can be beautiful, and no question that light and the processes and things you use in there can make that image appear more than it is, you know, and some would call that art. But my problem with that is when I walk up in a gallery to a statue or a nude or a flower in a vase or whatever it is, I can walk up and I can say, yes, that's beautiful. And then the conversation ends, right? I can't take it any farther than that. You walk up to a landscape where 175 women and children were massacred and slaughtered and their body parts taken down Larimer Street in Denver and displayed in the Apollo Hotel, and you tell that story about the injustice of the American government, our military committing genocide on these peoples that we took their land from, that we're living on their land. That is a didactic reference. That is a call to action. A call to action to make you, as an American, think about those things, and how, moreover, more importantly, how does life work on the Pine Ridge, South Dakota Indian Reservation look today? If any of you were to go to there, you'd be appalled. It's a third world country. It's a prisoner of war camp. It's a war zone. It's unbelievable that this is going on in our country. And the only way I have to tell these stories, and the only way I know how to take that little piece of my own genetic history, and I'm part of that genetic history in a small way, is to make this project and make it moral. It is a moral question. How we treat one another is a moral question, right? It's, what is morality? Morality to me is my fist swing ends at the tip of your nose. I don't have a right to go any farther than that. I can do that, but I can't infringe upon you. I want more truth and less dishonesty. I want to be healthy rather than sick. Those are all moral questions. And as artists, I believe we're not only compelled, but we should be in the forefront of making statements, political, socially, economically, all ways, through our personal ideas and thoughts, our own heritage, however we're connected, our ethnicity, whatever it is. We should be making comments on those to enlighten and to enrich, to educate. If we, you know, that's why the flower in the vase doesn't get very far with me. That's why the young nude woman sprawled out on the couch doesn't get that far with me. It doesn't help improve the world in ways which I think are important to improve the world. And while you can derive pleasure, you can't derive any kind of real change or effort toward that change, is what I'm saying.
If I could just jump in here, Quinn.
Please.
like you and Terry, and I suspect others I see on the panel here, I also started in the photojournalism world, and I think this is shining through with your comments, both yours and Terry's. If your first editors were much like mine, they used to hit us in the back of the head with their notebook and say, "Tell the damn photo essay with your stories and not with your pictures and not your words." And I think that got ingrained in our heads at very, very early in our careers, that we found it more important to visually use the photograph as the vocabulary to be the medium to tell the story. And I think that's why we oftentimes, and we're probably guilty in some respects, of looking for more in a photograph than what the intent may be.
Yes.
Now, having said that, I also firmly believe that what I'm seeing in the wet plate world today, and I'm going to take criticism for this, I know, because I'm certainly no authority, is I am finding far, far, far too much stuff, and to use an old phrase, and I don't know where the hell I got it, it's bland as spam. They're using substance over quality, or over quality.
They're process-driven images is what you're saying.
Yeah. They're having a sex affair, with a love affair with the process, not the message. There is no message.
Yeah.
And a couple of things I want to try to get back onto the focus of the show here, if I can.
Hey, before you do, Dale.
The show, though.
Dale.
Yes.
I just want to, before you go any further, I just want to address something that you said, because it's important that it's true that there are a lot of people out there making these prints with the process that don't have a lot of background, but I think Eric kind of hit on it too, is that they don't really, everybody doesn't necessarily have a purpose to get out there and do some of the things we're doing, but they do have some idea of what they're trying to frame, but everybody does not have that depth, and that's the thing I have to be careful of, because I can become very critical, and it's because of my experience, my knowledge, and my my education. I think sometimes once you get to a certain point, I think you're kind of in it's almost like a land of no return. That you tend to look at everything very differently from your experience. And when I have students, sometimes I tend to get really hard with them as well, and I have to stop and step back and realize that they're not where I'm at yet, and that they're just starting out, and that will sometimes begin the inspiration. And it's people like myself and Quinn and you, or whoever's doing these projects, those are the people that will begin to inspire them, and their projects a lot of time will develop once they have the technique down. And that's what happened to me.
You're absolutely correct, Terry. However, I should qualify my earlier statement. You're absolutely correct, and I would never, as a teacher who has taught darkroom and has taught traditional, or not traditional, but film and E6 and so on, I would be very hypocritical if I didn't agree with what you're saying. But what does annoy me is we now have, because there's it seems to be the wet plate process is new, that we have all these experts that are professing to be experts that, quite frankly, would fail the first composition 101 course I would ever offer. They don't know how to make a photograph of their life dependent on it, and they have no interest because they're the expert in the collodion process. That's what gets me. Telephone, Terry. I wanted, if I could, just to try to add a bit of levity, and to bring something, I hope, to a forefront, so we don't overanalyze this. I don't know if you can see this little guy or not, can you?
There's a pig flying.
Yeah, there you go. He's called the Flying Pig.
Yeah, there you go.
This guy, this is a piece of folk art. It's as ugly as it gets.
I think it's gorgeous.
I don't know how you would ever classify him. I mean, he's unique. This particular artist is from here in my home province. He's also has had collections with several presidents, the Queen of England. He's in Buckingham Palace. He's extremely well known. And in the States, if you think of Grandma Moses, we're talking the same kind of art. So I asked this guy, I said, how the hell would you classify this? I mean, really, how do you classify that? And he said, it's art from the heart. Yeah. And I think, Quinn, that's exactly what you're trying to do with your project, is create art from the heart. and that is the most difficult form to do because it's so demanding on us personally, because the camera does reveal both sides. The plate reveals both sides of the camera, and I'm thinking that's why you're having a difficult challenge with the project you're on. I know you'll succeed because I know you're pouring everything into it. And you know, my project, what got me started in wet plate, this exploratory, was I have a project that I want to do starting in 2017 and concluding in 2019. It's a 3-year road. For all those folks that annoy me that get one successful plate, then go online and call themselves expert and teach workshops, I'm 3 years just trying, in advance 3 years, just hoping I can get to a level where I can get some consistent results to start a project. Never mind go out and do one now. This is all part of the learning curve right now for me. To go back to the plate, this is the first plate I'll ever show. And I don't know if I should, and I hope it doesn't come through too good.
I think that's got Terry written all over it. Hey, that looks good, Dale.
What, the old part or the barn part?
The barn part.
Oh, okay. She texted me on the side and told me how old she was. I don't know if you can see. This is my backyard anyway. It's my shed that was actually built for photography purposes as a prop. But I don't know if you can see the varnish on that or not. Can you see the depth?
No, not much. It's kind of backward.
Yeah, I didn't think you could, but I thought I'd show it. But the depth, that layering up of the varnish is seems to be creating that illusion of depth. So I would encourage others that are trying to just, I don't know, bring that je ne sais quoi to a plate, is to try that and see what happens. I'd really encourage it.
Dale, to your point, very well said. To your point, I posted an article a few weeks ago, I think I mentioned this before, called The Death of Expertise. And there's two factors I think we're talking about here. Then we'll get into looking at some of the photo stuff here after this. There's two factors. Years ago, somebody did a Kickstarter project, and they I can't even remember the guy's name now. I think he was in New York. He did the Collodion Quarterly. It was supposed to be a publication every 3 months about collodion that'd feature somebody, and he raised a bunch of money. It cost a bunch of money to publish it or something, and he asked me if I could do the first article in it, the first interview, and I said sure. I have it here too somewhere. And in that article, what I talked about were two distinct types of people working in really any historic process, really. There's the techno-hobbyist and the artist. And the techno-hobbyist is a person that loves the gear, that loves the gadgets, that likes to talk about his XL 3045 BA series of this or that, just loves the nomenclature and the acronyms, and I love it. It's great. I rely on those guys quite often. And then they make photographs of doorknobs and pumpkins and, you know, just because, just for art's sake. And it's the only thing. They don't really, like you're saying, they don't really, and to Eric's point, to Terry's point, to Dale's point, all well said, they don't really have anything to say, but they love the process. They love to tinker in the process. They love the chemistry. They love to impress people. It's very visual. I get it, and there's nothing wrong with that. The problem is when they become confused with the artist in the public's eye. The public can't distinguish someone who's a techno-hobbyist and someone who's an artist. The public has a hard time distinguishing between a commercial photographer and an artist. The public has a difficult time distinguishing from a pornographer and an artist. There are all these classifications that you can make photographs within, and it all boils down to intention, like Dale said. What's the context of the work and what's the intention behind the work? If you can't answer those two questions right off the bat, we have to look at a different category, and maybe a techno-hobbyist. You know, the intention was to try this new lithium bromide collodion. The context is it's my backyard and it's an old chair of my grandma's, and I thought it'd be fun to photograph. But I'm just really, the intention is to test this salt. And then they get something semi-successful, and they get encouraged. And the only real avenue they have to travel down, they can't have conversations like this, but the only real avenue they have to travel down is to talk technical. And the technical always will supersede the philosophical. Because once you get in the philosophical, it's all, you know, relative. It's all just us, you know, kind of thing. The technical is more scientific. It's more solid. They can speak boldly about it. That's why when you get someone that makes a successful image, and like Dale says, they come on and now they're an expert and they're giving advice in all the forums and all the Facebook pages and telling people to do crazy stuff, and then they end up emailing somebody to get the real answer. Those are the two camps that I see. And I'm only talking about this camp in this group. I'm not talking about the techno hobbyists. I have enough interest in the technical to support my work and make it what I want. I don't have the interest in the technical just to do this and dabble, like a man cave on the weekend or whatever they do. You know, I don't have that desire. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to communicate through this process, having this process support these ideas in my projects, whatever project it might be, to connect myself with that project, to have the process support that project, and to have everything I know about life and art and technical issues come together and inform that project. And that's the ideal situation for me. If I can handle the technical, if I can get the results I want for a reason, and I'm not mimicking or emulating anyone here. Terry mentioned something about they go home and they make these photographs and it's all old to them, and they bring it back and it's new to a new set of eyes, and that's encouraging and interesting, but it's kind of old to them. Those kinds of things to me are more in the basis of emulation. They see things and they try to emulate a style of someone. There's nothing wrong with that, you know. I used to teach photography in higher ed, and one of the assignments, find an artist to emulate, find a photographer to emulate. It's a good way to get started. It's a good thing to do if you don't have anything to say. So what we're really talking about here is teaching people how to critically think, how to educate themselves, how to research, and how to do intellectual work on something they're interested in, and find out if photography can support that as a medium to communicate those interests. That's really what we're talking about. We're not even talking about wet collodion. We're not even talking about photography in general per se. We're talking about people's inability to generate or have interest, to learn how to have interest in something, to discover something that they're passionate about, that they wake up thinking about, that they go to bed thinking about, and then to have the drive. All this stuff does is support what's in here and here. That's the only reason I got into this. This was not cool when I got into this process. No one knew about this process. It couldn't be cool. There was no one that knew anything about it, relatively speaking, a couple of people. And so that's the bottom line. If you're an educator and you're working in photography, you should spend a lot of time, like what Terry's talking about, and even Dale touched on it, Eric talked about, is understanding your audience. And then if your audience isn't interested in your topic, and I can't force people to be interested in Native American massacre site photographs. I mean, if you're not interested in that, you're not interested in it. But what I can educate people on is having a passion in something that's well connected to me, that's well informed through the process that I'm using to make the work, and approach it from those lines, encourage them to do the same thing. Because what I'm seeing out there is just not, it's like we're just all still playing. It's like we're just all still, you know, oh, that might be cool, set that up, let's make a photograph of that. Oh, do that, that might be cool, let's do that. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. When do we move past that point? When do we get off the milk and get into the meat? When do we do that? Is there a time frame? Is there some point in time? I've been in this game 15 years. When do we go past that now? When does that become? When do you graduate into using this tool to make, you know, to give meaning to something, to communicate something, or is it just all for beauty and, oh my God, that's so cool, that's wonderful, that's lovely. I got an abstract photograph of my Harley Davidson right here in front of me, made by a workshop student, sent me a print of it. Means nothing to anyone except me. I can show it to you. Look at this. Can I show this to you? That one right there, I think. Is it? Do I have it on there? Yeah. I can't tell. Anyway. But anyway, those are different. That kind of personal work that, like your family photo albums, you don't you know, strangers don't come over and you hand them your photo album or turn on your VHS and show them home movies. Those are different things to me rather than communicating an idea to the public. Justice. I'm passionate about justice. I'm passionate about how people treat one another. I'm passionate about how we treat people who are different. That's my main thing. That's my whole thing. It just disturbs the hell out of me when people say, God, Quinn, I didn't know you had these bodies of work and had exhibitions. I just thought you taught this process. And it's like, God, that's the most be careful of what you do because you become that. I don't want to become a teacher. I'm an artist I'm a human being that has very specific things to say about certain topics that I'm very passionate about. And these are just tools that I use to do that. So when I get down into the weeds with people on these processes and things, it's like it's almost a weird waste of time for me. It's like I'm not interested in it. I'm interested in the result of the work. I'm interested in communicating these ideas. I'm interested in trying to affect change. You know, I'm interested in having the work make a difference. And what successful artwork is to have people think about your work. And like you said, a didactic artist. Maybe I am a didactic artist. I don't know. It's label me whatever. What I am is someone that's found a process that supports the ideas that I'm interested in. And I think that's the main thing people have to do nowadays. And I don't see it happening. Ladies and gentlemen.
I was going to say one of the things that I would rather see is I would rather see somebody's body of work being done in a medium that supports what they're doing, that they love doing, that has technical flaw in it, than looking at somebody's repetitive technical perfection with no meaning behind the actual project. And that's where the difference comes.
Yeah, and that last one is all over out there. It's all over.
Yes, it is.
You know, the F64 group, you know, all of these things, you know, all these movements of pictorialists, the neo-pictorialists, all these movements, you know, while they're fascinating and interested in, I'm just interested in making the work that I can make and go from there. Let me shift gears here.
Quinn, can I show? I wanted to show one print. Is that? Can I show one plate quickly?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what we're going to move into.
I just want to see how it looks compared to what other people are doing as far as the you know, exposure. That's the word.
Yeah.
But this is something that I've been working on, our streetscapes. I don't know how to do this without.
You'll find it. I can kind of see it.
Can you?
Yeah, now that's overexposed.
It is. Oh, on this side here, yeah. I see what you mean. And so it's like part of it's okay. And this one here, can you tell how the exposure is on here? It's so hard with the glare.
It looks a tad overexposed as well. Not as much so as the street side of that last one. What do you guys think?
Yeah, it's Dale here. It's hard to tell, Terry, from what I see because of the glare and so on.
Yeah.
I think they're ambrotypes, are they? I believe just by looking at them.
Yeah, they're just they're black. It's black aluminum.
Yeah, that one looks to be overexposed on your right side or where the tree is, but the building side looks to be fine.
Yeah, looks great.
I can't. Quinn would be the one to offer the counsel on that, but from my experience, what I tried to do is go reach into my bag of tricks from my PJ days and haul out some Stingray split grids. But as Quinn said, well, why don't you go try it and find out and see what happens? Well, let's just say I now know what self-masking means. So split grids aren't worth a damn.
Yeah, there you go.
After 8 stops of grad buildup, I still didn't have any significant change. So am I correct, Quinn? From that, and that's how I learned. So thank you. I learned how to get burned by putting a match on my hands. That's how stunned I am. I have to do it. It's a tactile thing for me.
I think everybody in this room's the same way. I do.
So from the technical side, I think what the lesson Quinn was giving me, Terry, was to learn how to expose for those shadows and then overdevelop the highlights. Is that correct?
If you want to call it that, I don't like to use the word overdevelop, but definitely push that develop for the highlights, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm putting this in again. I'm trying to be. What I have found in this whole journey is that this process is very humbling. All of a sudden, 25 years worth of experience is all for naught. In fact, it's a hindrance, if anything. The only thing I do know how to do is to compose a damn image now, and I don't know anything else. So
your plate looked great. Your barn shot looked great, Dale. I expect when people criticize their own work and then they hold something like that up, I know they're being really hard on themselves. You know, your plate looked great.
Well, to go back to your question earlier, and I don't want to get philosophical on this, but and Terry said this, she would rather see a good message as opposed to good technical.
Yeah.
And I agree. I get far more enjoyment out of looking at an Eddie Adams image, for example, than I do one that's composed in the studio, where it's that spontaneity, it's that storytelling, it's that bang, I got it. But I think you can also the two go hand in hand. You can increase the effectiveness of your message if you have the good technical to go with it. So to me, I try to keep them both going in a balance, if you will. Personally, I don't see that as a great. I don't see that image with the barn in the backyard as having any substance at all. It's a snapshot.
No, it's like you qualified that. It's an exercise. You're going through the process. You're working on things. You're not saying, hey, tell me how wonderful this deep and philosophical this image is that I don't know anything about. You're saying it's a technical image, and I'm qualifying that. I would say what Terry said. She would rather see context and intention in work than technical prowess. And I think the first person that you could call up on that list would be Sally Mann.
Oh,
and
yeah.
she would be someone that fits into that really well. Mm-hmm. Let me switch gears here real quick. You guys ever seen this book? The guy on the cover of this book? Huh? There you go.
Is that it?
That's it. That's
I
it.
got it.
Okay, cool. Okay. I want to introduce you to the guy on the cover of that book. His name is Aaron, and he's right here with us. And he's going to, I'm going to unmute Aaron if I can. Unmute yourself there, Aaron. He's going to start off today, and he's going to give us a little bit of context to his images, and he's going to show some work we're going to look at and help him with if we can. And he can drive the conversation. I'm going to bow out for a minute until I'm called on, and I'm going to turn this over to him. And then whomever's up that wants to show some work after Aaron, please jump in, and we'll look at some work and try to help each other and everybody get some ideas of where they're going. If they don't have any questions and they just want to share the work or you can put it in context the way you want, Aaron. But thanks for coming in, and the floor is yours, buddy.
Thanks, Quinn. Can everybody hear me all right? Awesome. You got me really nervous there, showing pictures and everything. Okay, let's start. This project that I'm working on, it's really a personal matter with a lot of it is portrait based, and I'm trying to convey a message that what it's about, something about what it is to be human and to interact with other people, and that you're somehow, trapped inside your senses, and everything you do when you communicate and when you interact with other people is guessing. It's not really, you can't be sure of anything because it's all subjective. So this is where to start. And
so
for me,
Aaron, not to interrupt you here real quick, but just to qualify, you're talking about a personal project that you're thinking, and I haven't seen any of this work really at all, so I'm as fresh to it as you guys. But you're talking about work that you're talking about the tension between humans interacting and never really knowing what that's going to produce, and that tension there of kind of like this tension a little bit, right? Although this is virtual, there's a little bit of tension going on, kind of thing, and we don't know really how. You know, it's a little nerve-wracking, and that kind of tension. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, yeah, sort of, but also in a way, I think the work, why I'm using collodion and this process is because it's it really shows like it creates a substance for this thing that is in between people, like language. If you would say language as a substance, it is not something that is definite. It's also it's always
it's fluid. It's movable, and fluid, and dynamic, if you will, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
So that's maybe that's a good start for.
Yeah, that's a great start. And the context of this is Aaron is in Sweden, and I was in Gothenburg, Sweden. I did a workshop there. I think it was in 2009, maybe. It's been a while. Yeah, and
2009, 2010.
Yeah, 2009, and I made his portraits, of course, but. That's the context of this. So he's been working in a little while, having time to think about this stuff. So go ahead, Aaron. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay, let's see if I can make this work technically.
Yeah.
Your screen here with the.
Yeah, if you go screen share, there you go. There you go.
So here's a start.
Oh, we had it, and then we lost it.
All right.
Screen share it again.
Okay.
There we go.
Was thinking if you could go full screen on this, but.
Yeah, you should be able to.
Still there?
Oh yeah, I guess you can. Okay, well we won't go full screen though. You can show it doing.
All right, I'll show it like this. Should I just step through the whole?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, whatever works for you. Absolutely.
All right, cool.
Step through those portraits. Let's take a look at them.
Let's see. I have to share that again. Yeah.
Yeah, try that. There you go. There it is. Okay.
Everybody see it?
Yeah, we got it.
Cool.
So you've adapted kind of a my first visual reaction is I think of Sally Mann kind of using the artifacts and the that's interesting there. Yeah. Looking through the glass darkly, right?
Yeah. Good quote.
Oh wow, that's interesting there.
Yeah, some of these were really like, I guess it shouldn't.
It looks like you're shooting square formats, or.
Yeah, it's a bit different formats.
Okay.
Some of them are 5 by 5 inches, most of them, or 4 by 5. But this one is from a Rolleicord, actually.
Gotcha. Yeah.
6 by 6 centimeters.
Yes, nice.
I guess I really should show them like this is like a triptych.
Okay, a triptych. Yeah, there you go. Okay, I gotcha. And again, I love using diptychs and triptychs. You can tell the story better with those.
Yeah.
That's interesting there. Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah, that should be the last one. The others are a bit.
Yeah. Anybody want to jump in and talk about these a little bit? I always seem to have something to say. Somebody else want to say something? I'll save my comments for a second here. You want some feedback, Aaron?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
I see a lot of I get an emotional connection. There is an emotional connection to what I'm seeing, and I do see the imperfections, but because there's an emotional connection for me, the imperfections take a back seat, just so you know, because I know you mentioned you wrote something about having we have technically bad coming up. I didn't see that. I saw some technical things, but I have them all over my plates. But your story that you're working on, there's definitely a connection between the artist and the subject. I love that you don't have all of them sitting posed. I like that every single one of them is very different. You've got a man looking down. You've got the one with his hands on his face, and they're partial. Some of them are partial headshots. Yeah. And I really like that you're not, you don't have a uniform method going through this process when you're photographing people. It clearly shows me that you're working with a feeling more than an expectation. And to me, it's the beginning of something really beautiful. There's no question about it. You have a body of work that's beginning to come together for you. And I really encourage you to continue not becoming very structured in the way you're shooting, because it makes your work interesting. Nobody wants to look at something where everybody is posed the same way, and some of these look like, the one with the man, there's one of the man looking down in just part of his head. There's something very strong in that image, and the other one is the man with the hands. That was very striking, and then there was another one with a woman that I think it was just a few back that I really liked as well. It went pretty quickly, but I think you're on to a really strong project here, and I do get a feeling from it. I don't get a lot of structure, so.
Yeah, I would go one step further and actually even say that.
Quinn, can I hold on to something there before you go? I was gonna go back and tell you the story about this, and I'm really glad you tell me that there's a feeling, because it's you get a feeling for them, even though because this emotional things. I think it was this picture of a woman and this picture of the man with the hands.
We didn't quite get the screen share on that. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. All right.
Aaron, it's Dale here. Can I just ask you a question before you give us the story on the background?
Yeah, sure.
Are you still I'm looking at these, and there's a connection. There's no question. There's something going on there, but I'll be damned if I know what it is. So I'll ask you a question. It's going to be very blunt. You don't have to answer. Do you know yet what the project is? Are you still searching for that message there, that story, or that identity that you're trying to give to this body of work? Or is this still an ongoing exercise?
I think I've quite finished it. Yeah, I think I have it pretty rounded up. The things that I.
Yeah, because what I'm seeing in there is kind of in line with what Terry's showing, and thanks for bringing the visuals back up again, because it's giving me a chance to look at the series in a better context. But what I'm seeing is it's much like Terry's saying. There's something almost ethereal to this. It looks like you're trying to show a disturbance or some such thing, and I don't want to overanalyze it, but there's just something there that makes me think that it's so loose that it's well choreographed. If that makes sense, I just don't know how to put my finger on it. At the end of the day, man, I can't criticize it or critique it in any way, shape, or form from the artistic value, because I think you've got a hell of a body of work here. I really do. I love it. I wish I could create that emotion that you're getting in your images. The technical, I can't. What the hell is a technical when you're looking at images like this one with that one eye peering through the fingers?
Yeah.
You know, there's something dark about your images that when I say ethereal, it sounds like there's almost some pain going on here, but
they're very serious, and I get that from your
fabulous body of work.
From your personality and just communicating with us. I can feel that really intense personal side of you, and I feel like it comes through in your work. And I know I've said this before, and I live by it, is that we all work from an autobiographical place, and somebody who has the intensity that you have in your personality, and I don't even have to know you, I can just tell by speaking with you and I mean by looking at you and hearing how you talk about your work and the expression that you have on your face. It comes through in every single one of these images. There's almost, it's just a very serious body of work, and you're trying to get people to really take a look at the serious side of whatever's going on with each individual.
Well, I mentioned to Quinn earlier, and be my last comment, Aaron. I mentioned, or to maybe I can't recall who. I made the comment: the camera looks two ways, and I think this body of work is doing that very, very clearly, and from what I'm seeing from my side.
Yeah, and Terry mentioned that, and Richard Avedon, you know, said quite famously, he said, you know, all my portraits are self-portraits. So when you start photographing people, you're going to gravitate toward people that you have a connection with in a sense of what your ideas are. That you photograph people in a way that, as they're articulating, the members, the people in the group here, are talking about that intensity. I would not only are the artifacts. You look past the artifacts. I would say quite the opposite. I would say the artifacts support what you're doing. You know, you look at the woman before, and we get some head shaking and said, Mark's going crazy. That's awesome. We look at the woman before this one, Aaron, the one kind of veiled. She looks like she's looking through from the other side from somewhere. I don't know what that, and you can't Photoshop that. You can't do that. That image, well, a lot of people would say just technically, you know, oh my God, you've got oysters and developer islands and stains, and you know, you can critique it all you want from that standpoint. But once you put that intention and that context behind it, all of a sudden now you're communicating something. You're creating emotions. You're making us think about things. Those things are very, very successful to me. Now, can everyone use these artifacts in that way? I don't think so. I don't think a lot of folks are going to be able to do that. But you seem, I'll reiterate what Terry said, you seem to be very, very agile. You're not afraid of moving in places and spaces and formats that accommodate that message. Serious, profound, and very, I mean, man, this woman is staring me down right now, and I like, wow, yeah, the intensity of your subject, how you've handled the material, and the execution of it. I think you're well on your way. I hope you can put some. I know you're Swedish, and I know it's difficult as second language. I appreciate everyone that speaks English and can communicate in this way, and I know it's difficult, but I hope you can put in your native tongue anyway. Put in that kind of intensity behind the context behind these, and maybe you can share that with us now. And now that we know nothing about it other than you said you're creating this tension that you want to feel when human beings come together, and whatever that tension might be. I think you've accomplished that in a lot of ways, but tell us what it's really about.
Well, one thing, the overall issue that Dale was covering a bit, is that the emotion that, you know, you have to, I want to transmit this emotion, like, even though it's virtually impossible to know anything about another person, because there's this layer of
I know what you mean. Do you know, Aaron? Do you know the English word solipsism? Do you know what solipsism is?
No, I never heard that one.
solipsism is it's an English word that in other words, we could all be brains in a vat, right? Reality. This speaks to me a little bit about solipsism in this work. There's a little bit of, are we just brains in a vat? Are we just, you know, is this just all being programmed from some software from somewhere, and we're just seeing this reality? Some of these images speak to that. Does that make any sense at all?
Yeah, I think it is completely to me, because I think I had this revelation, like sometimes, like, wow, I can really, even though sometimes you don't even have to communicate with some person, and you still, you know, you get this connection.
That's the best part.
It's like an emotional connection, but it is not anything that is a fact. It's
exactly. No, we're not.
That you can say this is how it is, but you get this really deep connection, and this is what I'm trying to convey, you know, and that resonates. The collodion resonates with that because of all of these I mean, imperfections and stains and whatnot. Yes. And they're like this, like the collodion is the medium that, you know, it's this even though all of this, you know, stuff, this gray matter that is between, you know, that it is the medium of communication itself, you know.
Yeah, and you've nailed it.
Even though it's all this gray stuff, you still can get this deep connection.
Exactly. You've nailed it there, Aaron. What you're talking about is you're talking about a physical, tangible object like this plate having physical material that represents something that's intangible. And I'll say it another way. I use this a lot in my work. When I talk about the work in Germany, the Kristallnacht work, the Night of Broken Glass, and I'm making these photographs on glass plates, and I'm using this cyanide that they used in the gas chambers in Europe. I'm using those physical elements to convey and impart an idea about the work, and I think you're using something similar here as well. In my statement, in the Portraits from Madison Avenue, I talk about the artifacts, the imperfections, echoing our own human imperfections. And I love that. There's something deep and rich about that. It can only, I will admit though, it can only be used in a certain context. I don't think I would ever be able to pull that off myself consistently. These few images you've shown here they're radically different, and yet they're all consistent because you're giving us the context and the intent behind it. So those kinds of process statements support the idea, and that's what's really important to me, and I can see what you're doing. And some of these, the more I look at them, could you go down to that body shot, that partial torso to the left there, 2 down maybe? 2 to the left?
This one?
Yeah. Now, to me, it took me a minute. It took me a minute to see what that was, you know? A very abstract idea. I could tell it was flesh. I could tell it was a body part, but there's or body of some kind, a body part of some kind. But there's definitely tension. You know, not to sound cliche or anything, but the first thing that I thought of was this Christ figure.
Oh yeah.
You know, once I saw it was I think it's a male body, isn't it? Is it a male body?
Yeah, it's a self-portrait, sort of.
Yeah, okay, well, that's you. So I'm not calling you Jesus, Aaron, but there is some, you know, something going on there. So this tension, again, between humans and between this idea of what it is to be human and what it is to connect, I think these are, the only thing that I would criticize about this is you desaturated these.
Yes, yeah.
And when you desaturate a beautiful wet collodion image, you take away that beautiful color, that beautiful warm je ne sais quoi, yeah, that beautiful coffee with cream color. That's the only technical thing that I would say. I would love to see the original warm plates not desaturated. I guess, and here's maybe you wanted to do that. Maybe you can answer this. For me, when I think of coolness and I think of warmth, and these are cool, these are like silver gelatin prints to me. When I think of cool and warm, I think human beings are warm and cool is death kind of thing. You know, I feel that warmth in the color of humans, human body parts, tell me that it's alive somehow. I don't know, but maybe you wanted to make this appear to be cool, to be gray and more cold. You know, it's really weird to me that if I could almost tell that this work was made in Scandinavia. So maybe I'm just putting that in my head, though. I don't know, though. What do you think, Aaron?
Well, to answer that, I think one reason that I didn't do that them is because
Somebody's got a bandsaw going on in your house, Aaron.
Yeah, that wasn't me. Okay.
Oh.
Well, the reason I desaturated them is because one thing I think I don't want to. I don't want to, you know, connect it too much with one thing. I don't want to connect it to too much with just with the alternative photography pairs, because I want to see the pictures like for themselves and not to. I think that's also a reason why I'm going to display these as prints and not as the
original plates. Yeah, fair answer. Yeah, I get it. And you've got different format sizes going on too, which will kind of streamline those kind of things in the print world. You could make, yeah. I get that. That's a reasonable answer. So
they were a bit inconsistent in color. Maybe that's because it depends on my scans as well.
Yeah.
But I thought I was really like just this winter. I really had them with all the colors from the beginning, and then I don't know. I just was so sick of this. This coffee and cream. I've seen it so much.
Yeah, no, it's fair. And you know, now that I think about it a little bit, and I'm thinking about what you're doing here, I think you made the right decision. Now, I retract my comments. Just simply for the fact that I don't want to objectify anyone in it, but that desaturation, to me, removes another layer for me. I mean, it produces another layer for me. It moves it to a different space. Yeah, it moves it into a cooler, more. There's more tension there, I think, with the context. If you look at each of the image, I think it makes more sense. It does. It makes more sense. You're right. That was a good move. I defaulted. I shouldn't have.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm just saying I spoke too soon. I wouldn't want them colored. I wouldn't want them coffee with cream. Maybe now. I'd like to see both. I'd like to see what they look like with the color and what they look like in. Well, we know what they look like is kind of the silver gray, the cooler tones.
Yeah, I have them on the computer. I can show you some of them with untouched.
Can I mention something?
Yeah, sure.
I have such a funny story with this color. Last year I tried to improve my knowledge, theoretical knowledge, and I tried to start learning at a let's say real photographic school at my age, in my age. So I'm 45 years old, but still learning my whole life, and I've tried to simply apply, or how to say it better in English, to try to start in a school, in a photographic school, in the Czech Republic. Yeah, and the story is that this well-known school now, she has a 25 years old tradition, and this school is.
Jan, is it Praga Fotoschule? Praga Fotoschule?
No, it's in Opava, and it is well-known school, yeah, and it's really hard to to start there to learn, because for instance last year, or yeah, this year I tried it in spring. We were together, I think 800 people, and from these 800 people they choose only 50, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
So you can imagine, yeah. But yeah, it was just for fun to try it, to prepare some handouts, curriculum vitae and something like that. And I brought there at that time, in March, yeah, it was in March, prints from that plate collodion, digital prints, because you have to send there some photographs, yeah. And then you have some personal discussion with teachers,
Yeah.
and then you simply have to say why you present the pictures like that, and so. And I just want to mention this funny story about the color, because I wanted to represent my plates and as a print, of course, because they get it via post, and yeah, it takes some time, and it was not possible, of course, to send original plates. And the teacher asked me about the color, why the color has this cream tone. It was for him really. He told me directly that it is not nice. He does not like it, and I tried him to explain. I didn't want to change the representation of that plate, because originally it looks similar like this digital print. That there was no aim to present it in different way.
Yeah.
And he told me simply, for me it looks something like fake. You try to present it like old picture, but with this sepia tone. And he told me, if you present it in black and white, it would look better for me. But I told him, it is like that. I can bring you the plate.
Yeah.
But in the end, I wanted to say that for me it was really very how to say it in English fast. I was really surprised that the teacher of such a school has almost no clue about wet plate collodion. Yeah, it was for me really very surprising answer from such a tutor or man who works at school for years and teach lots of students, also history. And yeah, so
Yeah,
that's my funny story.
It's interesting, Jan. One of the very few countries that I didn't teach workshops in Europe the 5 years I was there was the Czech Republic. I don't know why. No one ever requested. The closest I came was in Käfermarkt, Austria, with the Prague Photo Schule that was there, and I taught in that castle there. But never in the Czech Republic. I don't know why. But that's interesting that a person like that wouldn't have that kind of information. I like the color in the images. I know they're low res, but I like the color in Aaron's images actually now. I think maybe it could be inconsistent too, though, like he said, if he was scanning them in. But I don't know. I'd have to think about that one. But,
I'd like to chime in on his
yeah,
work.
Go for it, Mark.
Yeah, I really like it, and yeah, I got real excited that we talked about the imperfections of the imagery, because that is what makes those images so powerful. If those were tack sharp front to back, you know, full shooting at f/64, it wouldn't have the same impact that it does now. Those images reminded me, and I'm going to sort of date myself, sort of doing Polaroid emulsion transfers, where you boiled the emulsion off the Polaroid, the 59 type, and then transferred it and sort of got this swirling kind of look to it. Aaron, I think the images are really powerful, really good. I know Terry's not here now, but I want to comment on her comment saying about the technical aspect. you know, versus the series or the body of work being more important. It's funny that we say that, but we keep going back to the technical attributes of it. You know, Quinn just said, well, I like to see it in this color and that color. When it comes to talking about fine art, we can talk about it and hash it out day in and day out and still come with no conclusion. That's what's so great about the art world. It always grounds out to the technical ability of the project. So my only concern for Aaron is that I like the images, but you need to be able to get back to that place when somebody says, hey, can you do or reproduce that? And that's what I think is really powerful about the imagery. So.
Interesting. Great comments, Mark. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
I know. I let it build up for like 2 hours, and then
that's great. I would like to add to your follow up on that. Not only is the artifacts, or not only do we go back talking about the technical, I would qualify that statement and say, yes, we are going back to the technical because that's what we're observing and we know how the process works. But what we're talking about is that technical supporting those concepts. So we're not just saying it's cool because it's, quote, messed up because it's collodion, but it's cool that it's messed up because it supports that intention of the work he's trying to make. And I think that's the qualifier. Just to have, kind of like Sally Mann's work. He and Sally Mann have a lot in common. That idea of utilizing the process artifacts or the process itself to support the work is completely a legitimate conversation to have. I think. I don't think it's legitimate to talk about the process just for the sake of the process. But if you're talking about the process and the artifacts in the process that support this work, that's a whole different conversation to have about the technical. And that's where I like to talk about the technical. That's what's so profound about the process. And I know people think I talk out of both sides of my mouth, but I always qualify it by saying, no, the process is crucially important. That's why I selected it, because it supports my work in this way. Aaron could say the same thing. Anybody working in this process should be able to say the same thing. Those technical failures or technical successes, or wherever in between, however you want to define that, support the work. And I think Sally Mann uses it that way, although she doesn't really, say it outright. I mean, obviously she's using it that way, and that's where I see what Aaron's done.
I think she said one time, Sally Mann, in an interview, that she really liked it when big trucks came by her car darkroom, throwing dust everywhere.
Yeah.
Hopefully it landed in a nice way on the plate.
Yeah, she says every time I pour a plate, I pray for the angels of serendipity to visit, meaning she wants some chance happening to go down.
Talk about the decisive moment there, really.
Yeah, it was funny. I've told this story before, but a few months ago, I talked to Sally Mann on and off here now and then via email, and she wrote me a few months ago, and we were talking. Oh, it must have been longer than that because it was pre-China. But she wrote, and we were talking, and I said, yeah, I'm going to China, and she was, oh, be my eyes and ears, and check it out, all this stuff. And we were talking about how she doesn't like to leave her farm in Virginia, and then we got on the topic of the technical, and I said, oh, I can send you a couple of I'll send you my books. And I said, do you have my books? She said, no, I don't. I'd like to. I said, no problem. I threw some in the mail, sent them down to her. And then she wrote back a few weeks later, and she said, oh, these are great. It scares me. I just hope I don't get too technically good. That was her comment. So she is looking, there is I think that the person, and Aaron can chime in on this and talk to it because he's working in this style. I think the best place to be, and Mark, I'm going to follow up with what Mark just said here a minute ago. I think the best place to be is if you're in a position where you can make those kinds of things happen on demand or not.
Yeah.
I think that's where the defining lines are. Now, if you, like Sally Mann, if you only want to work in that style and that's all the desire you have to do, and you use this process because of that, kind of like what Aaron just said a minute ago, that's different. But if you want full control and you wanted to make that F64 photo with collodion, you could, or you can make a Sally Mann or an Aaron Matson type photo. You know, that's the idea for me. That's where all the technical stuff goes out the window, because when you talk about a person that on demand can create developer islands, sweeps, fogs, all kinds of stuff, or make a beautiful, perfectly clean, technically perfect image, that's where you have control, and that's where those arrows are in your quiver, and you've got the creative quiver, the technical quiver, the perfect quiver, the not so perfect quiver, or arrow, whatever you want to do, you can make happen out of that quiver. That thing is loaded with all kinds of tools and different methodologies for working. I think that's the biggest thing right there.
I still have to, you know, develop and learn, and that's why it's really nice to have these technical abilities as well, because it's really frustrating when you have those days and like, okay, now 2 days of shooting and you come up with nothing because somehow you messed up. But on the other hand, I can show you one picture. I had one of those days, nothing worked, and then I put the place in a box, came back, looked at them next half a year later or so, and I thought, like this picture, I thought that was a disaster shoot, but then came back looking at it, scanned it, thought, wow, there's something pretty cool in there, even though, and then I learned afterwards, you know, I figured out what happened, why those things happened.
You had something touching your plate there. You had something hitting your collodion.
Yeah, I think I had, and I also had. It's something with the collodion being too moist. I think when I put it in the silver or something like that.
Yeah.
Too thick, so didn't really sit.
Well,
also, I had a collodion that wasn't filtered enough, or it was some sediment in it, or they got it mixed up. So that's a problem too.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think but these things gave me also ideas to continue on the project, because I really like to look at pictures like this one up close and travel along these ridges and, you know, look at them like a map, and I figure like the people like a landscape to see people like a landscape to discover. Yeah, and that's why I came up, and that led to these pictures with a sort of like landscape.
They're definitely body landscapes. Yes, definitely. Yes.
I also want to, when I have you on here, jump back to a thing you said, and I haven't really one side of the story. I really got the chills when you said that this woman is like she's looking back from the other side or something.
Yeah.
Because this is my mother, and probably the last picture of her, because she died in cancer last summer.
Oh, I'm sorry, Aaron. That's our condolences. That's too bad. I lost my mother in the same year I taught that workshop in Sweden. My mother died in America here.
Hmm. And
that's yeah, I didn't know it was your mother.
My father at the same time. Right. So they're really emotional, and really great that you know. That you can see this. I know the portraits are from an emotional, heightened period.
Yeah.
And I am really glad that goes through.
Aaron, it's Dale here. The one that you're showing here now, did you say that was your father taken at the same time your mom had died?
Just a week before or so. Yeah, around the same time as that I made this picture of my mother. These are taken at around the same period.
Okay, thank you. I don't want to dredge that up. Obviously, it's a very personal moment for you. I can see that in these pictures, and that's what I alluded to before when I thought there was some suggestion of some darkness or something going on between you and your viewers. So that all makes sense to me now. That's thanks for sharing that. I really appreciate it. Fabulous example. Camera looks both ways. Fabulous example.
Isn't it amazing though too that before he even gave us context to that, look at how he's connected to that. Here's his parents. His mother has died. Making comments about a veil, making comments looking back from someplace, and then he gives us context to these images. That changes everything for me. That's why it's so important for an artist to be connected to their work and then give those kinds of details. Put it out there and let people see and bring their own filters to it. And oftentimes they'll bring those filters, if they're in tune with what's going on a lot of times, they'll bring those filters, and those filters will match up with the intention of the artist. It's rare, but it happens. And when they do, it's a wonderful thing. It tells you that you're on the right road. You're on the right path. What you're doing it right. It's communicating without words, communicating through semiotics or visuals, and saying more than words could say in Swedish or English or any other language through these images. And that's powerful. That is the power, to my mind, of photography and the power of making portraits of other human beings. Richard Avedon was interviewed, and I keep mentioning him, but he was interviewed, I remember one time, and the guy said, you're just always making portraits of people, and Richard Avedon said, yeah, I'm not a tree, I'm not a mountain, I'm not a rock, I'm a human being. That's what I relate with. And that really, really stuck with me. And I'm primarily a portrait photographer. That's another reason I'm struggling on this landscape work. But that emotion in those images and then giving context to that, because human beings can look at an image for the most part, unless the person's a really good actor or the artist is a really, really talented in the ways of disguise. Most human beings can look at a photograph, and if that is legitimate emotion, that human being is going to connect with that legitimate emotion. And that's what you've done here. I think those are your two strongest images, to my mind, is your mother and your father, because I know it's your mother and your father, and now I know the story, and I'm a human being. I relate with that. My mother has died. It's a powerful, that diptych would be very powerful to me.
Yeah, I haven't really thought about them like a diptych push for definites, but I think it's a.
I mean, I look at them just together down here in the small images on my screen and in the lower portion there, and I just look at them. I can clip off the other sides of that, and I can look at them together, and look at that. Look at that. Changes everything. I mean, it does. It's a whole story right there.
Yeah.
Whole story. Amazing, yeah. Good stuff, Aaron.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you for sharing. I appreciate it. I'm going to get on with my day, ladies and gentlemen. I know we didn't get to this portion, developing in heat, but we will next month. There's always another month to come by. I appreciate you guys coming out and spending all this time.
If I could very quickly conclude before I run as well, Aaron, I hope that one day I am as technically as poor as you.
Sally Mann comment.
No problem.
Fabulous, man. Thanks for sharing.
Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining up, and I'll stay in touch, and I'll get something out for next month. It'll probably be later in the month because of Ghost Dance, but we'll see you on the flip side.
Thank you very much, Queen. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for coming. Thank you.
Thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Eric, Jan, Mark. We'll see you next month. God bless.
See you. God bless. Bye.